Good morning. My name is Evelyn Kimber. I'm the president of the Boston Vegetarian Society, and I'm here today with my friend and colleague,
David Havlick, and I'm a board member of the Boston Vegetarian Society, and I've been on the organizing committee for the Boston Veg Food Fest for a bunch of years now.
That's right. I remember you as a very young man. So this is our 25-year anniversary celebration of the Boston Veg Food Fest. And we were reminiscing the other day that when we started the festival 25 years ago, computers were barely a new phenomenon in the home. And many of the people that we dealt with did not have computers yet. So there was a lot of hours on the phone and standing at fax machines and doing things the good old-fashioned way. So now we just celebrate all of the technology that we were able to use to bring today's event to life for you folks. So we hope you enjoy it and just settle in for the next 2 hours or so and enjoy the program that we've put together.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear from some of the people we have lined up for you all. You could see them on our speaker page on bostonveg.org. /foodfest. But we have some amazing speakers. We have a politician, a poet, doctors, athletes, animal rights activists, all sorts of people coming up soon.
Right. And the silver lining to the virtual format is that we can bring you speakers from around the globe. We have speakers from Australia and London and several from California, Colorado, Florida, New York State, Connecticut, and of course, many of our local friends here in Massachusetts.
So if you're joining us on Facebook Live, feel free to mention in the chat where you're joining from. And who do we have to kickstart the event today, Evelyn?
We're starting really a very exciting speaker, Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter is a center for the Boston Celtics. He is a former member of the Turkish national basketball team. He's going to be chatting with Juliet Pennington of the Boston Globe. Enes is a longtime human rights activist. And during the NBA bubble, so to speak, when he's had more time inside, to stay safe, he started exploring the impacts of animal agriculture, that is raising animals for food, on the environment, on climate change, on industry workers, and on the animals themselves. And this has been a big eye-opener and revelation to him, and it set him on his own journey to change his own diet. He recently recorded a heartfelt PSA for Mercy for Animals, and that PSA is linked on our website speaker page under Enes's bio. And I hope to go there and watch it in full. But to lead off Juliet's interview, Juliet Pennington of the Globe's interview with Enes, we have a few short clips from the PSA, and then we'll go right into the interview.
We should treat workers, animals, and our planet 3 times every day. You get to choose. And I hope you make the right choice. Thank you guys so much.
Hello, Boston Veg Food Festival folks. I am so happy to be here with you today. I'm very excited to be with my friend and vegan in training, Enes Kanter. You probably all know Enes as a 6'10" center for the Boston Celtics. But he also has made a name for himself as a humanitarian who has spoken out against human rights infractions in his home country of Turkey. Enes has recently extended that sense of indignation about injustices to animals, particularly those on factory farms. And he has just been featured in a Mercy for Animals public service announcement about this very topic. Since eliminating meat from his diet, Enes said he feels great. He said that not only does he find that his body heals faster and recovers faster from injury, but he feels stronger. It has been such a positive change for me personally and for the impact I am making, he said. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Enes. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Celtics fans. Hello, Boston Veg Food Festival. I'm so excited to be part of this. So let's do it.
Great. Oh, we are on a time crunch, so we'll get right to the questions.
Right.
Okay, so you're known to many, as I mentioned, not only for your athletic achievements, but for your humanitarian efforts. What are some of the injustices about which you've spoken out, and how did animal welfare enter the fray?
I think, we all need to speak out against injustice wherever or whenever we see it. I have spoken out not just about Turkish human rights abuses, but racial injustice, domestic violence, and much more. And because, God gave me this platform, I feel like I need to use it for good. And I feel like, animal abuse is another form of, injustice. So we must speak out against it.
Great. And you mentioned in a recent Mercy for Animals PSA that you learned a lot about factory farming and its detrimental impact on animals, workers, the environment, and our health while in the NBA bubble. From where did you get the information, and what stands out to you most about what you learned?
I started to learn more about factory farming just by, researching online. I was in NBA bubble. I had nothing to do. We couldn't really leave the hotel room. And I feel like taking more of an interest in where meat comes from. That is very, very important. And I was really saddened to learn how most farm animals are treated just so that people can eat their meat and enjoy their food. That's what they say. But I was also very troubled to learn about how the meat industry often abuses workers and the environment. So that was like the first time I started to learn in an NBA bubble.
You said that you're now more mindful about the food choices that you're making and that you are leaving meat off your plate. Is that difficult, seeing that you are Turkish and that culturally yours is a pretty meat-heavy diet?
Very difficult. I mean, I remember my whole life, growing up, my whole family would sit down and eat meat 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it is sometimes difficult to not eat meat. I'm gonna be honest, because like I grew up eating, like I said again, 3 times a day. But I have been working really hard by reducing more and more and making big time changes. And like a few months ago, before the NBA bubble, I was grilling steaks, grilling burgers, and grilling hot dogs. But now it's like I am making way wise and some other choices about my body, because I think it's very important to take care of it.
What types of plant-based food are you eating these days? Do you have any favorite dishes? Do you like to cook?
I do like to cook, yes, because I remember growing up, my mom always used to tell me, "Son, learn how to cook. You're gonna need it one day." But now, everywhere you go, sadly, some of my ex-teammates, Celtic is way wiser and smarter, but some of my ex-teammates, whenever I go to their houses, all they did was cook meats. I was very saddened by it. So, but I think, some of the plant-based food that I always try is the number one thing is Beyond Burger. I think it's delicious. I think is, you can eat it for lunch and the dinner. And, I actually, first time I tried veggie burger, and I was always, making fun of my teammates whenever they got a veggie burger. I'm like, man, this doesn't taste anything. But one of my teammates actually told me, dude, try it, and your life's going to change. And I'm like, okay. First time I tried it, I promise I couldn't even tell the difference. And my life literally changed, because now every restaurant I go to, that's the number one thing I look at the menu, see if they have veggie burger or not.
Wow, that's amazing. And you mentioned your teammates. So, that leads me to a question I wanted to ask you about. To what would you attribute the increase in professional athletes subscribing to a plant-based diet? And then as a follow-up, several Patriots players, including Cam Newton, Dietrich Weiss, are vegan. And I'm sure you're familiar with Game Changers. As an athlete, what did you think of that? I know that's a lot of questions, but what did you think of that documentary too? I'd be really curious to know.
I will just say this: if you're an athlete, it doesn't matter what you do, you have to watch that documentary, because it's literally a life changer. And first time I look into it, I was just amazed, because that the first part of the documentary talks about, if you're an athlete, the number one thing when you're growing up, they're telling you is, if you want to get stronger, if you want to get faster, you have to eat meat. You have to put meat in your body. And that's how I grew up. And I'll be honest, after this bubble, I started, training myself to be a vegan. Literally my whole life changed because like I start, cutting off meat and chicken and stuff, and I woke up just more energetic, and I feel like my body was healing faster. And so that mindset is 100% wrong. You don't have to eat meat to be the strongest or be the fastest or be the most athletic. So I feel like your diet can literally change your whole career and save your body. And actually, there's so many research out there that, if you cut off meat, that your actually your career extends longer. So I feel like we need to do our research before we listen anybody. So I think it's definitely very important to just do your own research. And now with all the technology we have, we can pretty much, get everything.
Yeah, and protein, right? Everyone thinks protein comes from animals. There's so many more pure forms of protein from non-animal product, right? Great. So one final question, again, in keeping with our time allotment. Gandhi taught us that nonviolence begins with what we eat, saying that he believes the more helpless a creature, the more entitled it is to protection by man from the cruelty of man. He also stated that the greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. What are your thoughts on those statements?
100% right. He's 100% right, because to become a better man, we just need to treat others. And when you say others, not just human beings, but all life better. So I think we need to talk about injustices wherever or whenever we see it. I'm not just talking about human rights abuses, but I'm talking about animal rights abuses too. So I feel like we all have a job to do. If you're an athlete, singer, actor, if you have a platform, I feel like we need to use this platform to bring more awareness of what's going on, because there are so many kids out there are idolizing us. So I feel like to have a better future, we have to inspire them and encourage them. So I feel like we all have a job to do. I know it's not easy, but I think if we all have to put the effort, it's going to be possible.
Great. Thank you. And with that, we'll conclude our interview. Thank you for your time. And we look forward to hearing more down the road about your path toward a plant-based, cruelty-free diet. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Most Boston way to start the Boston Veg Food Fest, I feel like. Someone from the Boston Celtics being interviewed by someone from the Boston Globe. And then also today is Boston Veg Food Fest Day officially in the city of Boston, right?
Yes, we got a proclamation from the mayor of Boston. David's holding it up to the camera. And there's a close-up on our website at bostonveg.org on the food festival page if you want to actually read the text. So today was proclaimed Boston Veg Food Fest Day in the city of Boston.
Pretty cool.
So, in honor of our 25th anniversary celebration.
Which is awesome. So this morning I'm having a really delicious berry smoothie. I got some coffee with some oat milk by me. You having a plant-based breakfast, Evelyn?
Yes. Well, this morning I had a mug of soy milk with some coffee in it. And I love that to start off.
Yes, love it. So tell us in the Facebook chat, if you're joining us through Facebook Live, what you're having for your plant-based breakfast. And in the meantime, we're going to shoot over to a message that we got from Oasis Vegan Veggie Parlor, which is a wonderful restaurant in Dorchester. I got takeout from them just the other day. It's amazing. So over to you, Oasis Vegan Veggie Parlor in Dorchester.
Boston Veggie Food Fest.
Happy 25th anniversary from
Oasis Vegan Veggie Parlor.
Aw, that was touching.
I can't watch that without smiling. I watch it over and over.
Same.
I love them.
So next up, we have a member of our organizing committee, Beth Barrett, who will be talking with the Healthy Heart Doc, Dr. Columbus Batiste, who is a Whole Foods plant-based cardiologist, and he joins us from California.
Thanks, David. So we just heard from Enes Kanter from the Boston Celtics, and he mentioned how he was influenced by the Game Changers. Our next guest appeared in that documentary. Joining us now is the Chief of Cardiology at Kaiser Permanente Riverside, Dr. Columbus Batiste. Dr. Batiste, welcome to the Boston Veg Food Fest.
Hey, it's great to be here. How are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm great. There's so much going on in the world today, and we all know how important our health is right now. What is the greatest health risk that Americans are facing right now?
That's a great question. And I think when I reflect on 2020, which has been burdensome for everyone out there, the one thing I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that is the greatest risk is stress. It's stress. And so that stress is really playing its role and havoc in our body. And so there's multitude of studies that have shown that stress correlates with increased chronic disease. Now, here's the key is that there's something called the broken heart syndrome. Now, you thought it's probably all the broken hearts that you left when you were young and growing up, but on the wayside, right? But there is actually a syndrome called the broken heart syndrome that happens from overwhelming stress that can cause the heart no longer to contract and beat like it should. And so stress is pervasive and stress is problematic, and stress is something that leads us to take on habits that we shouldn't otherwise do.
Okay. So talk to us about the concept of nutritional stress then. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, when I speak about stress in the community, I talk about stress equals demands minus our resources. That when we feel the demands of the world are greater than our resources to deal with it, we feel stress. Well, there's another corollary to that, which is our health equals our resiliency divided by our stress. And so that means every action we do is either adding to our resiliency or it's adding to our stress, and hence nutritional stress. So the foods we eat, now I always joke around and say, what's stress spelled backwards? It's a palindrome. It desserts. So what do many of us turn to when we're stressed? Comfort foods.
Yep.
We turn to foods we're thinking that it's adding to us a sense of resource or resiliency, but in actuality, it adds to our stress. And so through oxidative stress, through increasing our cortisol levels, which make us kind of in this fight or flight zone, it increases to what's called advanced glycation end products. And so nutritional stress is not only eating foods that are disease forming, which we all know those, but it's also not eating health promoting foods. You see what I mean? So are we eating the fruits and the vegetables and the whole grains, things that are going to help drive our body to perform better if we're an athlete, to perform better if we're a secretary, we're a physician, a lawyer, a real estate agent, to make us have clarity of mind and thought. And so that's really where nutritional stress comes into play, is that we want to avoid those things in food realm that are going to add to the stress of the world, stress to animals, stress to our bodies. And as a converse, we need it to add to our resiliency, which will improve the health of our bodies, the health of our world, and the health of our environment.
Okay, so what are the takeaways? What do you recommend for people to stay healthy? What have you got for us, Dr. Batiste?
It's easy. It's easy. Something that I was told never to be when I was a kid growing up. My family, my mom and my dad, I'm the youngest of 5, would say, don't be selfish, Columbus. Don't be selfish. Why would I do that? I want to tell you out there to be selfish. Get selfish. Now, what I mean by selfish, first, the S stands for becoming spiritual. That mindset, either a moment of gratitude, a moment of reflection, moment of meditation, that we're able to center our mind. And we know by doing this, we strengthen our prefrontal cortex. That by doing this, it acts as a keystone habit that allows us to be successful during our day. What's the E stand for in selfish? Exercise. Although I'm not a big proponent in exercise, I say, get active, get moving, be engaged. We know that through exercise, we can improve our immunity. Through exercise, we can improve our blood sugar. That improves our mentation, helps decrease depression when we're exercising outdoor. The L stands for love. I'm going to tell you, there's a great antidote to this thing called stress. It's called oxytocin. And so this thing, love hormone, is nothing new. But what we know is that when we get stressed, we have a tendency to want to go and speak to other people, tend and befriend, to go and come together as a group. The issue in society right now is a lack of empathy, a lack of love. By choosing to love over choosing to hate, choosing love over choosing fear, it gives us an opportunity to build that resiliency, and that equation, health equals resiliency over stress. The F is food, right? It's about eating real food, whole food, food that's not produced in a factory, food that's of the ground, food that will regenerate your body. That's what becomes important, is focusing on what you are eating for your health. So often we focus on, I don't do this, I don't do the other. Let's focus on what we are. By changing our mindset and becoming positive instead of negative, there's power just in that alone. What's the I stands for in selfish? Intimacy. Now, this isn't in a sexual relationship. This is in an intimate fashion in which you're able to actually sit there and have a relationship. It could be, my mom's 85 and has a pet. And this dog, she knows, her name is Precious, knows when my mom's in pain. She knows when she's happy or she's sad. They have an intimate relationship. And that's what the focus is to have intimacy. Because studies have shown just by engaging in intimate relationships, we can improve our risk against infectious causes, against viruses and colds. And that's been studied in research studies in the past. What's the S stand for, the second S? Sleep. How many of us get good sleep, healthy sleep? How many of us are on our phones, the blue lights, the TV, the iPads, our phones by our bedside ringing constantly, that we don't get good solid 7 to 9 hours of sleep? We know that by engaging in good sleep, it can lower our stress hormone level. It can relax our arteries. It gives us, all of a sudden we wake up and we remember where we put the keys. We solve the solution to a problem by getting that rejuvenation that's there. What's the last thing in selfish? H is for humor. In my office, if you come and you see me, one of the things I ask you is, tell me the last thing you laughed about. Tell me the last time you had a good, hearty laugh. When you laugh, it's infectious. When you smile, it makes me want to smile right now. This mirror neuron that's there, that now a process begins in our body that dilates our vessels. I want to let you know that when you get selfish, you start with being selfish. Now you can go ahead and you can become an agent of change inside the world. By getting selfish, you can live a life of purpose. By getting selfish, you can be the best version of you that was meant to be.
That's great. Selfish, spirituality, exercise, love, food, intimacy, sleep, and humor. Is that it?
Absolutely. That's right.
That's amazing. Right. I love that. Dr. Batiste, how can we find out more about you? How can people follow you?
That's great. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Follow me on Instagram at Healthy Heart Doc. I'm also on Facebook, Healthy Heart Doc. But more importantly, my website is thehealthyheartdoc.org, where you can follow along, reach out to me for information on how to begin to make this change and become selfish, and some of the projects I'm involved with.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Great to meet you.
Thanks.
Excellent information. Thank you, Beth and Dr. Batiste. Next on our roster, we're going to have my colleague David will be interviewing two elite athletes, Scott Jurek and Bryant Jennings, who were featured in the documentary The Game Changers that Beth just mentioned. The Game Changers, we just highly recommend you watch it. It's currently available on Netflix. It is a James Cameron produced documentary. It chronicles elite athletes, special ops soldiers, scientists, cultural icons who gain optimal physical performance with a fully plant-based diet. Scott Jurek is a world-renowned ultra-marathon champion, a best-selling author. He has been 100% plant-based since 1999. And on a fully plant-based diet, he has claimed victories in nearly all of ultra running's elite trail and road events. He has set a speed record on the Appalachian Trail, averaging nearly 50 miles a day for 46 days. You can imagine. Bryant Jennings has been vegan since 2013 and has achieved world-class status as a heavyweight boxer. Over to you, David.
All right, so I'm here with world-class athletes, Bryant Jennings and Scott Jurek. I wanted to quick start with, where in the world are each of you?
Right now, as of today, I am in London, England. And, I am over here currently training and working, get myself in shape and helping a few of my guys out to get prepared for their fights.
I'm at home in Boulder, so it's been much like a lot of things. We've done a few road trips, but been at home here in Boulder, Colorado. It's finally feeling like fall. We're getting a little taste of some cooler nights and cooler weather.
I did want to start out talking about The Game Changers, which is this amazing documentary. It's available on Netflix, and many of our members of our audience, I'm sure, have seen it. But for anyone who hasn't seen it, maybe starting with you, Bryant, could you just give us a sense of what is The Game Changers?
It's a summary of answers that's been questioned by certain people who don't believe that a plant-based diet can be successful. And it has a very good amount of elite athletes all over the world that are plant-based, that have been plant-based, and that have exceeded and succeeded in their profession while being plant-based.
One thing the film does too is it packs a lot of information into a short amount of time. However, it does it in a fun manner too. It brings out some casts of characters and individuals that people are like, what? They're vegan or they're going plant-based. And it basically made it more normal. And particularly for those who are used to thinking like, oh, you've got to eat meat to be a powerful athlete, to be strong, to be doing some of these. So it definitely dispels a lot of that in a fun way, and a lot of great humor in the film as well.
And Bryant, were you surprised at the enormous success of this documentary and that so many people were kind of hungry to see this type of information in a documentary?
The unexpected point was that, it was really turning people over. It was really making people, reconsider their diet, and it touched the oddest of people. I'm talking heavy meat eaters, and that's from my experience, my personal experience.
And Scott, you mentioned it busts some myths. Is there, one myth you want to bust today for anyone watching the Boston Veg Food Fest today?
Yeah, I think for me, it's obviously the protein issue is a huge one. Still, you think after all these years, everyone likes to think that, okay, you've got to have plant-based protein to fuel performance and to get stronger, to get bigger, to get faster. As long as you're eating enough wide variety of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, plant-based food, you can excel at whatever sport you're excelling at, can build muscle, can repair muscle. And that doesn't have to be done on animal-based proteins. It can be done on plant-based protein.
Brian, what made you switch to or kind of take on a plant-based diet in the first place?
Well, the fact that I cared about, my longevity, I cared about my health in the long term. I didn't really do it so I can, run faster overnight or do anything different overnight. I did it so by the time I reach, a certain age, like right now, I just turned 36 2 weeks ago. So, and I'm feeling fine, but I want to be able to live a much longer, healthier life. So there's certain things that I took out of my diet, and if you want to change, you just have to stick with it. I see the purpose in it. I see the use. I see the need in it. I just need to keep doing it so I can be, I can have this positive mind and keep influencing the people all over the world to just make the change. Because where I'm from, it's a lot of bad health. It's a lot of bad health, and I'm one of the people to be able to come and speak to the community, the city, the country, or just be a representative for good health. And I'm proud of that.
I think for me, it really was like Brian. It's kind of funny. I wasn't expecting short-term effects of it and benefits. It was really long-term. I was kind of scared into this idea, like I want to avoid chronic disease and I want to avoid the ailments that afflicted, my family, the people I worked with in hospitals as a physical therapist during my my early days in my rotations, and just seeing that disease. And it really was this initial, I guess, impetus of avoiding long-term chronic disease.
Bryant, what are some meals that are your go-tos, maybe the night before a really big match, or right before training or after training to recover? What are some your go-to meals that you love that you want to share?
Yeah, well, my favorite meal is peanut butter and jelly. I just think that's like the go-to meal, period. There's been plenty fights where before I went out, I ate a peanut butter and jelly, or I ate 2 peanut butter and jellies or whatever. And that's pretty much my go-to meal when it comes to preparation, because it's actually something that it's like a treat as well. And it has a lot of carbs, has a lot of protein. Well, post meal would be, like chickpeas, lentils, like an assortment of, and they don't even have to be cooked at all. Just like an assortment of beans, peas, and it's just like all of this energy food. So those are like my recovering foods. And one of the main treats that I always treat myself to, it's Brazil nuts, figs, dates, pumpkin seeds, all day, every day.
For preparation the night before, a lot of people put, like, Bryant was saying, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on that, meal the night before, or right before competition. And, while it's important, it's really what you're eating, a week before, 2 weeks before. So like Bryant, I like to keep it simple. I'm a big tempeh fan. So if you want a lean protein source and that's easily digestible due to being fermented, and you're somebody who's like, I'm not too much into tofu, don't like the texture, tempeh is a great one. I love to just saute a little bit of that, and incorporate that with maybe like a quinoa or white rice. I try not to do too much. I'm a big whole grains guy, do a lot of whole grains, whole legumes and such. But the night before, I try to make sure that my stomach empties, my digestive system is, essentially emptying well before I go into an event where I have to be eating, essentially nonstop, sometimes, every half hour, every hour for, 20 plus hours. So it's making sure that, my stomach digest. So I do more steamed veggies and hold off on the salads and a lot of roughage the night before. But then for recovery, I love Thai food, Mexican. Some of the things on the Appalachian Trail that I was craving regularly was, a bean and rice burrito. I think beans and rice, that combo, along with just the salsas and flavorings. I love spicy food. So Thai food is another favorite of mine because it just has that blend of protein, fat from the coconut milk, and just rich flavors. And then, of course, over a bed of rice or noodles is just, magic in terms of like going down well. And I think that's, for me, I'm a big ethnic food guy. So lately I've been messing around with different types of beans and rice combos. Even it's real simple food, but the Caribbean and Latin America just has, amazing, just subtle and simple spices for putting together a bean and rice dish, essentially just mixing legumes and rice and cooking that. So it doesn't have to be complicated. And I love how Bryant is, all about simple stuff too. I mean, nuts are magic too when it comes to recovery. I think he mentioned Brazil nuts and increasing, natural steroid levels. Brazil nuts have been shown to do that. And I think that's what's super cool about these whole foods, is finding the foods that, you want to incorporate for recovery.
Great. So just one final question for you both. I was hoping you could each take a stab at why an athlete might want to try going plant-based, and then one tip for an athlete who's maybe considering doing it to help them in that transition.
I think an individual should consider going plant-based because they want to improve their overall health and wellness. Again, it's not a quick magic bullet.
How about you, Bryant? One reason why an athlete might want to go plant-based, and a tip for that person who might be transitioning.
Yeah, so I never want to make, going plant-based, strictly for athletes. I really encourage the average person to focus on their health, focus what they put on their body, what they put in their body, what they put, what they think about, their whole diet, period. I just need the athletes to be proof that you can live an excessive, excessive physical life, while being plant-based. But yeah, other than that, I would rather every normal person to be vegan, or to be plant-based, based on the fact that we have too much of a history, especially in the melanated community. We have too much of a history where we have high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, and all of these different illnesses and diseases and sicknesses that kills us every day by the millions. And I just think that people need to wake up and just focus on their health a little more. Their health.
Thank you, Scott and Bryant and David. And there's a link to the Game Changers in both of their bios on our speaker page on the website. I do hope if you haven't seen it yet that you will try to watch it on Netflix or other ways.
And now I'm eating peanut butter and jelly because I
Yeah, you were inspired. So we have received a greeting from Veggie Galaxy, our friends at Veggie Galaxy in Central Square, Cambridge. So let's hear it.
Hi, Evelyn and BBS. This is Adam.
And Kathy.
At Veggie Galaxy. On behalf of everyone at Veggie Galaxy and Veggie Planet before that, we'd like to congratulate you on 25 years and thank you for being such an important part of the Boston Veg community.
We hope that we'll all be able to celebrate together next year.
Thanks again and congratulations.
That was wonderful. So now we wanted to remind you of two important things. So one is that there's Evelyn mentioned this at the beginning, a marketplace of amazing products from exhibitors and sponsors and principal sponsors this year on our website, Boston Veg Food Fest. bostonveg.org/Food Fest. And you'll see it scrolling beneath here, which is better because that's more correct than I am. And then the second thing we wanted to remind you is if you're watching this on Facebook, please feel free to share to your page, let your friends know, because we have some amazing speakers coming up. Anything else you wanted to add, Evelyn, before I move on to our next speaker?
No, that's perfect. But we always want to encourage people also to sign up for our email list. It's a low volume email list. And you can do that right on our website at bostonveg.org. Then you'll get notifications of upcoming events throughout the year. This is a big weekend always for us for the festival, but we're active throughout the year with live speaker events that are always free, cooking classes, holiday events and dinners, picnics and outings. So we always have a lot going on under normal non-pandemic conditions, but even now we have some online events planned, so do get on our email list to be notified and be in the loop.
Great. So next up, we'd like to welcome Jonathan Balcombe. He's a biologist with a PhD in ethology, which is the study of animal behavior. And he's the author of a few books, one of which is called What a Fish Knows, The Inner Lives of Our Underwater Cousins, which is, by the way, a New York Times bestseller. And so now, actually, Jonathan joins us live from Ontario. Jonathan?
Thank you, David and Evelyn.
Great. Hi, Jonathan. How are you doing this morning?
Good, thanks.
Great.
Good, thanks. I'm just opening my presentation.
Cool.
And I think my screen is shared, so hopefully that will be the case.
We'll see.
Maybe you can let me know when you can see it. Are you seeing it? Yeah.
Yes.
You can see it? All good to go?
Good to go. Thank you,
Okay,
John.
great. I'm delighted to speak for a few minutes about one of my favorite subjects, the fishes, who sadly the closest most people ever get to is like this, or perhaps like this. And it's a shame because this is an incredibly diverse group of organisms, over 33,000 known species. They come in all shapes and sizes. You get some clue of that here and some wonderful colors as well. So today, in the few minutes that I have, I just want to present these creatures through a different lens than the usual one we get, which is usually in the context of, oh, this latest fish recipe, or look what I caught in the lake today. In fact, fishes, with their huge diversity, they are intelligent, they are sophisticated, they are sociable, They're aware, they're alert, they're sentient. And among the many achievements they can claim is tool use. This tusk fish is using a rock as an anvil to break open an unfortunate mollusk. They also have superb memories. This one in particular, the frillfin goby, actually makes a mental map of its habitat by memorizing that habitat while swimming over it at high tide. Here's where they live, and they can jump. They can use that memory to jump accurately from one tide pool to another to escape, say, a predator like an octopus or a heron, and they can leap from one pond to another. A pretty amazing thing. They can learn this in one day, and they can remember it at least 40 days later. So they got superb memories, and they also have superb recognition skills. Fishes have very good vision. And archer fish, this little fish in the tank on the right of the slide here, they squirt water to catch insects flying by, and that's an incredibly difficult way of catching food, but they're able to do that. And because they squirt water, you can put touch pads over their tank and present them with different visual stimuli. And by doing that, researchers in Germany showed that what a lot of people who've kept fish in their homes for a long time have claimed, and that is that they can recognize individuals by their faces, even when the hair is removed and the ears are removed, as the two panels on the left show. So they have superb visual and recognition and memory skills. And because they have minds, they also have beliefs. They fall for the same optical illusions that we do. A fish who's trained to poke his or her nose against the larger of two circles, such as the orange ones here, will, when presented with this Ebbinghaus illusion, in which the two circles, orange circles, are the same size, will poke his or her nose against the one on the right in this situation. I think that's really poignant. It just shows that a fish can fall for the same optical illusion that we do. They can be deceived. And indeed, nature has a lot of deceptions, and many species exploit the gullibility of others. So it says a little bit about how they can think and perceive in the same kind of ways that we do. Do fishes feel pain? Absolutely they do. Scientific studies show that fishes like these little zebrafish, you can see why they're named zebrafish, will swim to a part of their tank to get pain relief, to get to where a pain relieving drug is being dissolved in the water if they have been injected with, say, acid, something that causes pain. By the way, I'm not endorsing these kinds of studies, but they nevertheless are done, and they point out, they show these creatures react in a way we expect if they feel pain. There shouldn't be any doubt that they feel pain. And by the way, they're willing to pay a cost to get that pain relief. They're willing to go and swim in an area of their tank where there's bright lights and nowhere to hide, a place that a little fish would normally avoid. They're willing to do that if they can get pain relief there. So it shows the awareness, the wherewithal, the decision making that these creatures can and do make. And speaking of decision making, these predators, a grouper on the top and moray eel, have been found in the Red Sea and I think in some other locations to work together as a hunting pair. These are large predatory fish on the reef, and the grouper on top will make a signal, a head shaking signal or a body shimmy to invite the moray eel, not just any old moray eel. They know each other. They will have teamed up before, and they swim over the reef, and they have a much higher success rate at catching smaller fish if they work together, because the moray eel can go in the nooks and crannies of the reef, and if the little fish escapes out into the open water, well, guess who's waiting? The grouper. So this is an example of referential signaling, the head shake, and cooperative or collaborative hunting. These are considered to be very sophisticated things in the animal kingdom. What about virtue? These are 4 species of rabbitfish, and you can see in each picture there's a pair of them. One who's feeding, plucking algae from the reef, which they feed on, and the other one is not feeding. The other one is looking up, playing a lookout, looking out for say, a moray eel or a grouper, so that if the lookout sees somebody coming, they'll quickly signal and they both go and hide away quickly. It's a much safer way to feed, and of course, after a couple of minutes, they switch positions. So everybody gets fed much more safely than if they both just fed together. It's virtuous because the lookout is foregoing the gratification of food for the time being. They're waiting patiently while the other one feeds, and then they'll switch off. So it's a nice example of virtue in the fish world. And here's a nice example of artistry in the fish world, where a tiny, until recently undescribed species of pufferfish, the male spends days building and maintaining this beautiful 6-foot wide mandala-like circle structure in the sand on the bottom. It's like it's a fish version of the peacock's tail. It's an invitation, a visual invitation to a female who may happen along. She'll see this, and if she's duly impressed, they'll mate together. They'll lay the eggs in the center of this structure and then cover it with bits of broken shells that they break in their mouths to protect it, and then they'll guard the nest. And all going well, the young will hatch, and the males will have that talent in their genes for making these structures when they become adults. So it's an example of natural selection for artistic creativity, if you like. And I would say those females, if they're impressed, it's probably an aesthetic pleasure that they're getting out of these structures. And then there's personality. It's so important to remember that all fishes are individuals. They're unique. They have their own personalities. This is a puffer fish. That's the one on the left. A 9-year-old named Mango. Mango lived to 11, and yes, he was captive. And I don't mean to endorse keeping fishes in captivity, but he lived alone, and he would greet his human when she would come home. And they had a relationship, they had a connection, and you can see that here in this photograph. And scientific studies show that fishes do have unique personalities between individuals. Well, sadly, we don't treat fish very well. We don't treat them as if they're individuals. And it's so easy to forget when you see a picture of a huge number of individuals like this, that they are in fact individuals. Everyone is or was a unique individual. And it's estimated we catch and kill conservatively several hundred billion and possibly well over 1 trillion individual fishes each year. And the ways that they die are pretty awful: crushing in nets, decompression as they're raised from the depths, suffocation on the pool deck or on the boat deck, or bleeding out if they're filleted, which often happens when they're still alive. Because I'm speaking to an audience primarily in Boston, I did want to mention lobsters. I almost said octopuses, which are a fantastic group of animals in themselves. But lobsters, everybody knows they're commonly looked at as food, and they're dropped into boiling water. It's a terrible thing to do to any creature. And science shows that they too are sentient and aware. There's growing evidence that they can feel pain. We should certainly give them the benefit of the doubt. These are complex, long-lived creatures. Some can live to a century or more, and we deserve to give them much more respect. And yes, there is science to back that up. There are a growing number of published studies on a number of invertebrates, including the lobsters, crabs, shrimp, showing that they too are sentient, that they have the capacity to feel. And we all have a choice in what we eat. We don't have to be eating animals who care about their lives, who have lives that matter to them. Animals not with just biology, but also with biographies. And so we need to make wise choices in what we eat, not just for our health, although that's certainly important, and not just for the environment, although that's certainly important, but also for them, to respect and make the world better for the animals who are trying to share the planet with us. By the way, these shrimp here are made by White Wave, a company that makes seafood, quote unquote, out of plants. And there's a growing number of companies and products available. You can go to your supermarket pretty much anywhere now in North America and get products like this one from Gardein. And so my take-home message is that if we choose wisely, if we eat plant-based, we are helping not just ourselves and the environment, but also all creatures, including the lovely fishes. So thank you for listening to me. And I think, I guess in this format, we don't have time for questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
For being with us. Jonathan came to us from Ontario today. He was with us in person at our festival a couple of years ago when his book on fish sentience, the full title is What a Fish Knows, The Inner Lives of Our Underwater Cousins, which is a New York Times bestseller. It's now available in 15 languages. So go to Jonathan's section on his bio on our speakers page, and you'll see his other books. And his next one coming out in May 2021 is called Superfly, and it will be about insects. I can't wait to read that one.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah.
Also, I love what he said. Animals have biographies, not just biologies.
Yes. Yes, yeah. So we'd like to take a moment now to thank our principal sponsors of the Boston Veg Food Fest. And I believe we're going to see their logos come before us on the screen.
I think as you say them. Yep.
Hodo Foods, Boston Organics, Chica de Gallo.
This is North Coast.
North Coast Organics, Nuttin Ordinary, The Sweet Travel Life, Uprise Foods. And you will find them, their websites and their products on our virtual vegan marketplace. Do not miss that. It just went live today. And for the next 15 days, there are festival special discounts and promotions that you can take advantage of. So don't miss visiting our virtual vegan marketplace. Our principal sponsors, our sponsors, and our exhibitors are there. We were blown away by the variety and wonderfulness of all of the exhibitors and sponsors who engaged with us for this event. And we're so grateful to them and hope that you really enjoy perusing their websites and their shopping pages and taking advantages of the discounts and promotions that they're offering for the next 15 days. So you'll find that on our website at bostonveg.org. Just click on Virtual Vegan Marketplace and you'll see it there. Our next speaker is Colleen Patrick Goudreau, who comes to us from California. She has spoken in person at our festival years ago when her early bestseller came out, The Joy of Vegan Baking. She is a cultural commentator, a podcaster, an award-winning author of 7 books. And her newest book, The Joyful Vegan, How to Stay Vegan in a World That Wants You to Eat Meat, Dairy, and Eggs, is what she'll be talking about today. She's the host of Food for Thought podcast, which has been voted favorite podcast by Veg News magazines several years in a row. And welcome, Colleen.
Hey everyone, thank you so much to the organizers of the Boston Veg Food Fest for having me, and congratulations to you on your 25th anniversary. I was lucky enough to join you. I think it would have been back in 2007 when my first cookbook came out, The Joy of Vegan Baking. And I'm sorry we can't meet in person, but I know we will again one day. So I hope you are all well. My name is Colleen Patrick Goudreau. The mission in my work is to empower people to make informed food choices, to debunk myths about veganism, to be a voice for animals, and to give people the tools and resources they need to live according to their own values of compassion and wellness. I always say, I'm not asking people to live according to my values. I'm urging people to live according to their own values. And I do this through my podcast, through speaking engagements, through my online cooking classes, videos, and books. Now, I don't know about you, but I did not look at this thing called vegan and say, that's a club I want to join. It's going to cause disharmony in my family. It's going to distance me from the status quo, make me the butt of predictable jokes. It's going to limit my purchasing options and compel me to become an expert in nutrition and history, philosophy and anthropology, animal husbandry, ecology, and the culinary arts. But whatever, just sign me up. That's not how it happened. Rather, for me, there was a pivotal moment when I realized I was no longer comfortable paying others to do to animals what I could never do myself. Once I was awakened to this reality, my instinct was to align my actions with my values, to reflect my ethics in my behavior, i.e., to become vegan. Now, I'm often struck by how funny a phrase that sounds. We say a caterpillar becomes a butterfly or a seed becomes a flower, and we can easily imagine what they look like before and after their transformation. But what does it look like to become vegan, right? What did I become when I became vegan? Was there really a difference between the pre-vegan me and the post-vegan me? Because prior to becoming vegan, I was a compassionate person. I considered myself a compassionate person, living a compassionate life, even advocating for animals in my own way. But in reality, in truth, my actions weren't fully in alignment with my self-perception. I would never have hurt anyone else, another living being, myself directly, but I was paying others to do it for me. So my compassion was blocked. It was clouded. It was hindered. It was conditional, right? And so I often say I didn't become vegan as much as I removed the blocks to the compassion that had been inside me all along. So since then, for 20 years, I've been guiding people to becoming vegan and staying vegan. And that is the topic of my 7th book, The Joyful Vegan, How to Stay Vegan in a World That Wants You to Eat Meat, Dairy, and Eggs. I wrote this book because over these last 20 years, I've heard from thousands of people who've resisted becoming vegan, who've become vegan, who've stayed vegan, who've struggled staying vegan, or who've stopped staying vegan. And this applies to those who consider themselves plant-based as well, people who do it for health reasons, what have you. And so for over the last 2 decades, I've been asking the obvious questions. First of all, why do so many people eat meat, dairy, and eggs in the first place when doing so goes against their own core values of kindness and compassion and wellness? Number 2, why do so many people resist becoming vegan in the first place? Why do so many people resist stopping eating animal products? And 3, why do so many people who do become vegan or plant-based stop despite their positive intentions and even despite feeling good and experiencing personal benefits? And so after decades of gathering stories, asking these questions, drawing upon my own observations and experiences, and looking at the data that are available, I began to identify some common universal threads among most everyone who becomes vegan, whether for ethics or for health. And I believe these threads, these common experiences, hold the answers to those questions, the questions I've been asking, and that so many people have been asking. And I think the most important thing that came out of this work that's in this book is that there are answers. It's not like these questions have no answers. It's not a mystery why people eat meat and care about animals, why people eat animals but also care about them. And that's what I want to get at. If we understand the why, we can help answer the how. My personal favorite chapter in The Joyful Vegan is chapter 1, called Don't Tell Me I Don't Want to Know, Willful Blindness and Blissful Ignorance. And it's the story of all of the systems and structures that keep us willfully blind and why we all support each other in this blindness. I love this chapter because I think it helps explain why so many people eat meat, dairy, and eggs when doing so goes against their core values. And what I believe and what the data show is that people stay vegan or stop being vegan. People stay the course or not, depending on how well they navigate the social, cultural, and emotional aspects of living vegan in a non-vegan world, constantly being asked to defend your food choices, being outside of the status quo, not having a sense of belonging, feeling the pressure to be perfect, often self-inflicted, and experiencing guilt, remorse, and anger, common experiences that, if not addressed, if not managed, can lead to giving up entirely, breaching our values, and sabotaging our own goals. I'll let you read The Joyful Vegan so you can see for yourself what those experiences are. But my hope is that at the end of it, you embrace what is essentially an incredible way to live, that there's the realization that once we become vegan, once we become awake, once we remove the blocks to the compassion that is inside of us, that there's happiness and there's peace and there's contentment and there's relief, but there's also anxiety and there's anger and there's remorse and there's sadness. And so the journey continues. And so it never ends. Ours is a story with no ending. It's a journey with no destination. So savor the highlights, take note of the landmarks, and go up, through, and around the obstacles you will inevitably encounter and be stronger for in the end. Travel above and beyond what's familiar to you. If you have lived your whole life seeing the world from one place through one lens, it might feel overwhelming to travel beyond what's familiar, but it is worth it. And you are not alone. Many before you have traversed the same ground, and many will follow behind. My hope is that the Joyful Vegan can be a map to guide you, and that you find and that you are indeed a joyful vegan yourself. Thanks to everybody at the Boston Veg Food Fest, and we'll see you again. Be well.
Well, thank you, Colleen. That was wonderful. And she's right. You're not alone. There's lots of us here to support you if you're, trying to get through those blockages she was talking about and things like that. So thank you, Colleen. Just a reminder, if you're joining us on Facebook Live, feel free to be telling us how you're liking the event today. And more importantly, maybe check out the speaker bio page on bostonveg.org to see who are some amazing speakers that we have coming up that you're excited about. Put that in the chat, say who you're excited to hear from that's coming up. And in the meantime, we're going to share a message we received from Walnut Grill in Newton that they sent just for you all to see.
Hello from Walnut Grill. Congratulations to Boston Veg Festival 25th anniversary. Once again, hello from Walnut Grill. Congratulations to Boston Veg Festival 25th anniversary.
I love these restaurant greetings, and in normal times we have events at them, and they're just such wonderful hosts and give us just the most wonderful, amazing vegan special events. Next, we welcome Stephen Wise, who is a legal scholar and founder and president of the Non-Human Rights Project, the only civil rights organization in the United States dedicated solely to securing rights for non-human animals, working through litigation, legislation, and education. He has practiced animal protection law for over 30 years and has taught animal rights at Harvard Law School, Vermont, John Marshall, and Lewis and Clark Law Schools, and at Tufts University School of Veterinary Medicine. He has authored 4 books and is the subject of the 2016 documentary Unlocking the Cage, which follows Attorney Wise in his unprecedented challenge to break down the legal wall that separates animals from humans. Attorney Wise joins us today from Florida, and I'm going to refer to you, Steve, as Steve, because Steve used to be Boston-based, and I've known him for over 30 years, so that's what comes naturally. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much, Evelyn.
Steve, currently animals are, in the eyes of the law, considered property, the same as a sofa or a chair. Isn't that right?
That is true.
So tell us what you're doing to change that.
They're considered things. And so what the Non-Human Rights Project does is, and we've been litigating now for almost 10 years, is we begin to bring lawsuits challenging the thinghood, challenging the idea that all non-human animals are things who lack the capacity for rights, and urge the court to begin considering the fact that they are indeed persons. We started with chimpanzees and elephants. In fact, our latest case involves suing the Bronx Zoo on behalf of an elephant named Happy, and actually we have an appellate argument in front of the Manhattan Appellate Court on November 19th, about 2:00 now, and it'll be streamed live if you want to hear it. It'll be archived if you want to hear it, as we begin to really get serious with that court and with the courts in New York about the idea that at least some non-human animals ought to indeed be persons, who have rights. We're also going to be filing lawsuits soon in California, in Colorado, in India. We work in India, work in Israel, and because every country, everywhere has the same problem. for thousands of years, they've all thought that all non-human animals ought to be things, essentially the slaves of human beings. And the work of the Non-Human Rights Project is to change that.
So tell us about some of the cases you're working on and have worked on.
Well, we began working with non-human animals such as chimpanzees and elephants, who we could prove to a court were autonomous. We argued that an autonomous being, or any being with autonomy, ought to be able to have the right to bodily liberty that's protected by a writ of habeas corpus. And so, for the first time, we've been bringing habeas corpus cases on behalf not of humans but of non-human animals. And as you can imagine, for many judges who rarely see habeas corpus cases, when they see the first one and they see it's on behalf of an imprisoned elephant or an imprisoned chimpanzee, and they understand that all non-human animals have been legal things for 2,000 years, they're surprised. And so we were having a hard time for several years in the courts, and then in 2015, and you can actually watch it on the HBO film Unlocking the Cage, a judge in New York issued a habeas corpus order on behalf of a chimpanzee. And then in 2018, another judge out in Western New York issued a habeas corpus order on behalf of Happy the elephant. And so we're litigating, that case, and then we're moving on to other cases. We begin with those non-human animals who the world's experts on those animals will be able to file an affidavit that detail their cognitive abilities and their autonomy, and we urge that an autonomous being ought to indeed have at least one right, which is the right to bodily liberty, so they can't be imprisoned any longer.
Well, this is truly groundbreaking work that you're doing, Steve. And you work with a team of lawyers around the country, don't you? And isn't Dr. Jane Goodall involved?
Jane is on my board of directors, and she has been for 25 years. Mm-hmm. I think we now have 10 staffers. They're in Portland, they're Bay Area, LA, New York, where I'm in Florida. And by the way, after all these years, Evelyn, I think I'm going to be starting to come back and spend almost half the year in Boston and the other half in Florida. I now have two of my children now are living in Boston, and they're the same age that I was when I moved to Boston and I began working on these things. So I'll be going back and forth between Boston and South Florida.
Oh, yes. So I remember when your twins were born.
Indeed. Well, those twins are now going to be 23 years old.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely be glad to have you back in Boston more. In fact, you've maintained your email address of Wise Boston. I won't give the full address, but your email address is still Wise Boston.
Oh, that's okay. If people want to contact me, they can either contact me at wiseboston@aol.com. That's my 30-year-old address, and then I also am swise@nonhumanrights.org. And we also are been looking at non-human animals at Massachusetts, other states too. And so, as we grow bigger, we're able to bring on more lawyers. I forgot the fact that we just brought on a new one in Denver, for example, who's beginning tomorrow. So we just keep expanding, and we keep bringing more lawsuits, and we keep working more and more within the United States and also throughout the United States. And I start to teach more. I've taught not only at those 4 or 5 schools you mentioned, but now I've been teaching at Stanford. I taught at Tel Aviv Law School. I teach at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And so there's people all over the world, who want to understand, what we're doing and begin to apply those sorts of principles to the animals in their countries. In fact, some of them are doing better than we are. There was in the Islamabad Superior Court in Pakistan, a Superior Court judge, based partly upon our cases in the United States, said that an elephant had rights and ordered him freed and sent to a sanctuary. We think a similar thing is likely to happen in Israel as well as in India. Meanwhile, there's a lot of judges to have to try to bring into the 21st century they're still either in the 19th century or they may be in the 1st century AD with respect to the way they view non-human animals. So it's a struggle, but we're finding judges who are beginning to understand what we're doing and are sympathetic to it.
Well, I'm on the non-human rights project's email list, and I'm always impressed and encouraged and inspired by the updates that I get from you and your team, Steve. So I encourage other people to go to your website. It's linked on Steve's bio on our speakers page, and sign up for their email list and keep up with their good work and support it. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing, Steve, before we say goodbye for today?
Well, yeah, when I come back to Boston, I look forward to starting to speak again in Boston. Although even now, sometimes when I'm in Boston, I still speak at various places, but I'm looking forward to coming back and at least partially rejoining the Boston community as well as Florida.
Well, that will be a treat for us, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to be with us today, Steve.
Oh. Congratulations! It's a great idea. What I've been hearing is terrific, and all of the restaurants, of course, I go to when I'm in Boston, and I wish I were there right now.
Well, you will be soon, and that's good news for us. Thank you, Steve. Bye-bye.
Take care. Good luck.
Thanks.
Well, that was wonderful. Such important work, and we've been seeing in the comments. I keep mentioning Facebook Live, but also we know hundreds of you are joining through YouTube as well, and we're reading those comments as well. And Evelyn, because you couldn't see it as it was happening live, I mean, people just think Stephen and his team's work is so important, and it's great to hear from him.
It is. And next we have another icon in the world of plant-based eating and nutrition. Dr. T. Colin Campbell will speak on COVID-19 and the plant-based diet. Dr. Campbell is Professor Emeritus of Nutritional Biochemistry at Cornell University, a world-renowned nutrition researcher, and the author of several noteworthy books on nutrition. His project, The China Study, which became a book, The China Study, is one of the most comprehensive studies of health and nutrition ever conducted, and it was recognized by the New York Times as the Grand Prix of Epidemiology. He is the founder of the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies and the online plant-based nutrition certificate in partnership with eCornell. And when I meet people and learn that they are vegan, I'm always interested in what inspired them, and I'll ask. And so often the answer to that question is that they read Dr. Campbell's books. So we're so pleased and grateful to have Dr. Campbell join us today, and he joins us from New York State.
Hello, I'm Colin Campbell. I'm here to speak to you at the invitation of Evelyn Kimber, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Boston Veg Food Fest this year. I actually have spoken twice before, I think, at this organization, plus two more that Evelyn's invited me to in the Boston area. So Evelyn and I go back a few years, and I just want to pass on my compliments, not only to the Boston Veg Food Fest, but also to Evelyn personally, because and compliment her on her persistence and hard work for all those years, making something like this work. People like her that just stay with it, work hard, get the job done, that I really admire. I also told Evelyn, too, that I would make a few remarks about some of the work that I've been involved in. I've been involved in this, as many may know, for this is my 65th year, believe it or not. Counting from the days when I was doing graduate research on food and health at that time. And I've stayed doing the same thing the entire time. And I mention that because in the beginning, I had certain views about food and nutrition in particular that's really substantially different than what I have now. I came from a dairy farm, milking cows, did my doctoral research in graduate school on promoting the consumption of more of that great protein, especially high quality animal-based protein. Now, that's the way it was. That's what I thought, my personal background, my beginning professional background, most everyone thought that too, namely that the more protein we could consume, the better. Well, I learned fairly quickly that that wasn't exactly the way it was. Shortly after taking my first faculty position and being responsible for the coordination of a project in the Philippines, developing a model for feeding malnourished children, I saw something different. We were there with an intent to increase the consumption of protein in that population, like everyone else was doing at the time. But I actually saw something that was kind of peculiar, to say the least. I got the impression, it wasn't obviously wasn't very well established, but got the impression that there was the few families who consumed the most protein were the ones who tended to have children more likely to get, of all things, liver cancer. A cancer that's just incidentally initiated by a virus called hepatitis B virus. Okay, so in any case, more protein, more cancer is what my impression was. So with that, I had a dilemma. I came home to my university, organized a research project to ask that question, explore that. Is it true that high protein consumption, especially animal-based protein, could turn on cancer? That was totally out of my sphere, my world. I didn't quite believe it, but I got research from the NIH that continued for the next almost 30 years working on this project. And I learned that indeed my suspicions seemed to be correct. Consumption of animal protein, this is experimental animal studies in this case, consumption of experimental animal protein actually has a tendency to turn on cancer growth in that laboratory animal model. Quite dramatic. I mean, it's almost like an all or nothing kind of thing. And so with that very provocative observation and also learning some other things too, that we could do things like turn cancer on and off by nutrition, rather than assuming that everything is controlled by genes. So that information established for me a different paradigm than what I started out with. So at the end of the day, and today, for example, I tend to think of nutrition very differently than I did then. I define it differently too, I might add. Nutrition is not about single nutrients doing their thing, which we've always assumed over the years, but rather it's everything working together, as in whole food, especially the protein of plant-based whole foods. Okay, so I have a very enthusiastic belief in what protein can do, what nutrition can do, but it's not shared widely, not this particular point of view. But in any case, given that information, when this coronavirus thing came this year, something new, something serious, I recalled some data that we had collected in China, a big nationwide study in China over 30 years ago, also on a question concerning the relationship of nutrition to the prevalence of that virus and to the rate of mortality for primary liver cancer. In any case, to make a long story short, we had in those days collected on close to 9,000 people, actually adults. We collected information on how much active virus is present in those folks, as well as how many people were actually had immunity to the virus. That is to measure antigens for active virus, antibodies for the immune system. What we learned after collecting all this information, blood samples, if you will, we found that people who consumed the most plants were the ones who actually formed the antibodies, the immunity to the virus. In contrast, the people consuming some animal food, and it was a fairly small amount by Western standards. They didn't consume that much animal food, to be honest about it. I didn't think I would see anything, but in reality, those who consume animal food, the virus, when it was infected people, that's the hepatitis B virus, once affected people, it goes on to form liver cancer. So we saw a really strong relationship, for example, between the active virus, the prevalence of the active virus, and the rates of liver cancer. And so there you have it. Consume plant-based foods, basically create immunity to the virus, animal-based foods left the virus to be active to do its dirty work, namely to cause liver cancer. That research actually was measured many different ways, but everything that we did sort of pointed to the same result, leaving me with the impression and the suggestion that the control of that virus by nutrition was the same as what we already have been learning about the ability of plant-based diets, if you will, to prevent and even reverse heart disease and diabetes and chronic kidney disease and so forth. It's the same story, once again. And so now I had this rather enthusiastic idea about the possibility that if nutrition does that with the hepatitis B virus, it will do the same thing for the coronavirus. There are about 80 or 90 or so officially named viruses that we now know. And all these viruses, they have different symptoms, all the way from colds and flus to AIDS to polio, even to this liver cancer situation. All these viruses have different endpoints, different symptoms, but they all go through the same immune system when it infects someone. And so the immunity then immediately reacts, the body reacts and tries to immunize people against that exposure. And they do that in large measure by forming antibodies, although there's a more complicated process than that. And so some of those things happen too. So what we learned was that the people consuming plants were able to immunize themselves against that virus than people consuming animal-based foods. Now, I'm suggesting that this is likely true for the coronavirus too, because that also goes through the same immune system. Were that to be the case, and if that is the case, and that's what I suggest, is very likely the possibility. What this means is that for those who are suspect victims of exposure to the virus, or even for those who may be testing positive, if they were to change their diet, and the diet works really very rapidly, surprisingly, in some cases, according to looking at biomarkers, the virus can actually begin to have it. The diet can begin to have its effect within 1 to 2 days in terms of decreasing serum cholesterol or doing some other things. So what I'm suggesting, I think we have some very exciting information here to suggest that the whole food plant-based diet, which we've heard a lot about now, of course, that's capable of actually preventing and even reversing some of the degenerative diseases. Also, I'm suggesting works also for the viral diseases as well, maybe to different degrees, of course, with different degrees of rapidity, if you will, but still it's the same sort of thing. The plant-based diet should, I believe, have a pronounced effect on helping to resolve the coronavirus. I'll leave it at that. It's a very provocative idea, but I'm really anxious to hear others react to that. And quite frankly, there are those who are going to be disagreeing, but I will only ask one favor. I'm willing to take any challenge. That's not the point. But if they want to react against it, then tell me the data they have to prove the opposite. I'm suggesting that just consuming a plant-based diet, whole food, essentially would help to control that virus. So with that, again, I want to thank Evelyn Kimber for organizing this, for inviting me. I'm honored to do so. And I say a big yay for the 25th celebration of this program that she's been running. Thank you, Evelyn. Bye.
Well, Dr. Campbell was very gracious, but this has been a complete team effort with other people that you're seeing today, just as important parts of the team.
Evelyn, are you blushing a little? No, but it is true. Evelyn has been an amazing leader in this community in the Boston area. And as you said, this is all, everything we do is all volunteer, and it's a whole team of people, in this whole movement kind of working on these amazingly important issues.
Yes, everyone involved in organizing BVS events and this festival, the festival every year, donate their labor, time, and talents. And David, can I mention the fashion show that we're enjoying today?
Yeah.
A different historic T-shirt from the festival. Every year we have a new design, and David is showing us a range of them.
Yeah, I think I'm on my 9th or something. I still have a couple left. There were some I couldn't even find, which reminds me, if you have your own older Boston Veg Food Fest t-shirt and at some point today want to post it and tag us on Instagram or something like that, please feel free, because it's a nice memory from all these years of amazing festivals. So our next speaker, Evelyn, you mentioned that Colin Campbell's work and his books have really inspired a lot of people to make the switch or to think differently about the food they're eating. And our next speaker, I must say, has that role in my life. I started reading excerpts from Peter Singer's Animal Liberation when I was in college. And because I could not argue against this amazing philosopher and his amazing arguments, I was like, well, that's it. I'm not going to be eating meat anymore. So he's been really important in my life. And two of you, at least in the chat, I saw Ashley and Tim called Peter Singer one of their idols. So I'm going to quickly introduce Peter, but then Evelyn, if you wanted to add anything more about how special he's been to you as well. But Peter Singer, for anyone who doesn't know, is an Australian moral philosopher, and he's tagged by journalists around the world as the world's most influential living philosopher. He's often credited with starting the modern animal rights movement through that publication of Animal Liberation in 1975. He also teaches at Princeton University. And lucky for us, his new book, Why Vegan? Eating Ethically, was just published, I believe, just a couple days ago. And you can find it in our virtual vegan marketplace. We really recommend getting a copy. It's a pretty short book, but full of amazing information from this, world-leading philosopher. Anything to add, Evelyn?
Well, I could add so much, but in our short time, I'll just say that reading Animal Liberation in 1984 launched me into a lifetime dedication to animal advocacy for 36 years, and I foresee it for the rest of my life. So we're so pleased to have Peter Singer sharing his message today.
Right. Welcome to Peter Singer.
Hi, I'm Peter Singer, and I'm happy to be speaking to you again at the Boston Veg Festival. I say again because I was there in 2006. I was able to be there in person then, and it was a great day, I remember. Of course, I can't be there in person this year. It isn't happening that way, but I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak to you. And in particular, I'm happy to speak because I've just published a book, Why Vegan?, which reprints some of my early essays on the issue of the ethics of what we eat, and also then goes into the more recent writings, the more recent issues. It's a very slim book. It's a quick read, and if you have friends who you'd like to help educate about some of the ethical issues relating to what we eat, it's a quick and easy way to do that. I've now been a vegetarian for very close to 50 years, just a few more months to go, and I reached the 50th anniversary of when my wife and I became vegetarians. I in particular gradually moved towards being vegan over the years, so there's no specific date about that. And in fact, as I say in the preface to the US edition of Why Vegan, I'm not strictly vegan if you want a hardline definition of it. What I'm primarily concerned about, firstly, the impact that what we eat has on animals. Secondly, climate change. And thirdly, and more recently, the issue of the contribution of eating animals to pandemics and the dire situation that we're in as I speak to you now. You might notice that I've left out something that is an important reason for many people to be vegetarians or vegans, and that's health concerns. I leave that out because I'm a philosopher. That's my area of expertise. I've been working in philosophy pretty much all my life. I think I have some ability to assess arguments and to put forward arguments, particularly about ethics. That's the area that I've worked in. But I'm not qualified in areas of nutrition or medicine or health. So I leave those arguments to other people who are better qualified than I am, which is not to say that I don't think that there are such reasons, just I think it's better that I stick to what I really know about. So let's look at those three things that I mentioned in the brief time that I have to speak to you. First, animals. I got interested in this issue because I was challenged by a vegetarian to justify what I was eating. This was in 1970, and I hadn't really, although I was working in ethics, I hadn't really thought about the ethical status of animals and the ethics of what I was eating. Now, that may seem very strange to younger people today, that I could have gone through. I was a graduate student by this time, so I could have gone through my undergraduate degree. I was 24 years old without having thought about this. But basically, people didn't think about it. I don't think I'd really met a vegetarian until that time, not to have a conversation with anyway. And if I had, it might have been somebody who had very different reasons from the kinds of reasons that I now hold. Might have been, for example, a Hindu, might have been somebody who had particular health reasons, or possibly a pacifist who thought that we should not kill any being at all, which is still not my view. But the person I had this conversation with, a Canadian fellow graduate student called Richard Keshen, simply said that he didn't think it was right to treat animals in the way that they were being treated to be put on my plate. And so I said, well, why not? Don't they have good lives? Yes, sure, they get trucked away to slaughter and killed, and that's bad, but don't they have good lives? Because I believed that animals were outside on the fields. I knew nothing about the fact that already then in 1970, chickens and pigs in particular, and also veal calves, had been taken indoors, and the vast majority of them were crowded together in factory farms where the only real concern was producing the product as cheaply as possible. As Ruth Harrison, who wrote the first book I read on this called Animal Machines, said, cruelty is acknowledged only where profitability ceases. And we haven't made much progress since then. We have made some progress through the animal movement in constraining some of the worst abuses, but you only have to go online and look at some of the undercover videos to see that the progress has been very limited indeed. So I started thinking about the ethical status of animals. Why do we think that humans are the only beings who really matter, who are important? And I came to the conclusion that I couldn't justify the way that we ignored the interests of non-human animals. This is, I concluded, a prejudice akin in some ways to prejudices that whites had in the 18th century, for example, against Africans, that enabled them to think of Africans as mere tools who they could capture, enslave, and set to work on the plantations of the New World. We recognize that as a prejudice, as a absolutely morally abominable way to treat another human being. But I think it's also an abominable way to treat a sentient being in general, whether that is a human being or not. And just as we reject racism and we reject sexism, the idea that men have the right to use women, to regard women more or less as their personal property, as also happened in earlier times, and we see those as prejudices or attitudes that were used by a dominant group because they served their interests, or at least seemed to serve their interest, were convenient for them. So I think we should recognize speciesism in the same way as an excuse, a justification, a bias against non-humans that serves the purpose of enabling us to exploit them and feel okay about that exploitation. And I wrote the book Animal Liberation, published in 1975, in order to expose that prejudice and the implications it has for the way we use animals, and particularly for the way we use them in order to eat them or eat their products, and also to use them as tools for research. So that still to me is the most important argument for avoiding animal products, that overwhelmingly they are the result of unjustifiable exploitation of other sentient beings. Since I wrote Animal Liberation in the 1970s, of course, the world has become aware of the problem of climate change and the contribution that raising animals for food makes to climate change. The very significant proportion of greenhouse gases that comes from animal agriculture. There are varying estimates, but a few years ago, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization said that animal agriculture contributes more to climate change than the entire transport sector, than all the cars, buses, trucks, and aeroplanes, ships, trains contribute. So it's obviously very substantial. Whether that's quite right or whether you think that it's actually slightly less than that, or some people say actually significantly more than that, it's clearly a substantial contribution that we can reduce immediately, unlike questions like how do we generate electricity, where it will take time to develop a clean energy grid and provide the power we need. Switching over to a plant-based diet is something we could do very rapidly if the consumer demand is there for it. And I think it's incumbent on us to make that switch and to do our part in changing the diet that we eat. And it's been very encouraging over the last decade or so to see how many people have done that, to see how much greater the consumption of plant-based products is today. The third reason that I think is particularly relevant today is the contribution of eating animals to the pandemics, both the pandemic we face now and pandemic risk in general. We all know that the novel coronavirus pandemic originated in the wet markets of Wuhan, markets in which wild animals are captured and caged and brought to be sold alive in these markets and slaughtered on the spot when a customer says, "I'll have that one." They're totally unhygienic. They're an ideal place for viruses to transmit from one species of animals to another, and of course, ultimately to humans. And I think there's no defense for keeping those markets anywhere in the world. But there is also a much larger issue, and that is that factory farming is the ideal place to breed new viruses, to create new viruses and spread them. We talk about social distancing for humans now today so that we don't spread viruses or so many viruses to each other. Obviously, if you've ever seen a photo of a factory chicken farm or a pig farm, there's no social distancing for animals. They're crowded together very closely, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them in the case of chickens in a single shed. And so that's an ideal place for viruses to spread. The animals are under stress because of the crowding, so their immune systems are weakened, and new viruses develop and do get transmitted to humans. We know that this has happened already. In fact, the previous pandemic, the swine flu pandemic, the virus was traced to a North Carolina pig farm. And we've also had avian flu pandemics coming from factory farmed chickens. So this is now an additional and powerful reason when we think of the huge cost of the present pandemic, cost both in lives, in suffering, and in the dislocation of the economy and pushing tens of millions of additional people into extreme poverty around the world because of that economic dislocation. This is a third powerful ethical reason for saying we need to move away from an animal diet. Finally, just let me come back to what I said at the beginning about my being a flexible kind of vegan. I am concerned, as you can see from what I just said, about the impact on sentient beings, on beings who can suffer, and the impact on climate change and on pandemic risk. So not everything that is an animal can, I believe, suffer. I am very doubtful that oysters or mussels or clams are capable of suffering. They have these bivalves, have very rudimentary nervous systems, and they don't contribute much to climate change either. In fact, the cultivation of oysters, for example, it actually helps to clean the waters because oysters are ocean filters. So they clean the waters in which they're cultivated. So, you know, it's not a matter of being absolutely strict. I say a little bit more about that also if there were cell-based meat that came, it was developed in a factory without there ever being a sentient being, without there being an animal, but just cellular growth of meat that produced a palatable and economically competitive product without significant contributions to climate change. I wouldn't see an ethical reason against eating that. I might not want to eat it anymore after not having eaten meat for 50 years, but I don't see any particular ethical objection to eating it. So it's not a matter of being absolutely pure or strict in my view. It's a matter of thinking about the consequences of your eating choices, consequences for the world as well as for yourself and for all sentient beings affected. And I think that's what leads us to favoring a plant-based diet. Thanks very much. It's been great to have the chance to speak to you. Bye.
Well, thank you, Peter Singer. Wow, he's amazing. Here I am. Big thank you to Peter Singer. I mean, he's amazing and still influencing people. And just a reminder, you can get his book in our virtual vegan marketplace, his new book. And again, he joined us from Australia, which, you know, reminds me about, and he mentioned climate change. And I work in sustainability at a local university. And he's so right, first of all, that animal agriculture is a huge contributor, not just to climate change, but every serious environmental problem that we are causing as humans. But also that this year we're able to bring in these amazing voices without causing the emissions of air travel. And so, you know, it's a win-win here. We're hearing from amazing people. We're not contributing to climate change as much. And it's pretty awesome. And, you know, in that vein, I did want to remind you, you know, his book's on sale in the marketplace, and feel free to share with us in the chat what other books have influenced you. And we still have some amazing speakers coming. We have Miyoko Schinner, we have Michael Greger, we have a poet, we have a politician, we have a cooking demo, some really exciting things coming up.
Yes, and if you're watching the future lineup, we will be going, obviously, now beyond the 12 o'clock estimation that we had thought. But several in the next portion are giving short 2- and 3-minute presentations, so that will speed through the rest of our roster.
Yeah, so speaking of, next we have a quick message from Red Lentil, a vegan and vegetarian restaurant over in Watertown that they sent in. So over to you, Red Lentil.
Good morning there. This is Pankaj from Red Lentil. I wanted to wish the Boston Vegetarian Society Congratulations on your 25th anniversary. And I hope everything goes well. And I would like to see you guys soon at Red Lentil when in near future we'll like bring back to normal. Good luck with everything and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. We miss all you guys. Our next presentation will be hosted by our organizing committee member, Diane Daniel Sacco. She'll interview with Julieanna Hever, who is the plant-based dietitian. She has a master's degree in nutrition. She's authored 5 books, including her recent release, The Health Span Solution, How and What to Eat to Add Life to Your Years. She was the host of What Would Juliana Do? She gave a TEDx talk and instructed for the eCornell Plant-Based Nutrition Certification Program that our speaker T. Colin Campbell founded. She has appeared on national TV numerous times, and Juliana joins us from California, along with our beloved Diane.
Hey everyone, my name is Diane Daniel Sacco, and I am here with Julieanna Hever. Julieanna, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
When you think about plant-based, vegan, whole food plant-based, can you talk about some similarities and differences with those terms?
Certainly. So when I was first asked to write, my first book was A Complete Idiot's Guide to Vegan Nutrition. And I petitioned to change the title to Complete Idiot's Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition for this reason. A vegan diet is an exclusive definition. All it really means is I don't eat or use animal products. But that doesn't really incorporate what do you eat? What do you incorporate? What is the inclusive version of that? And that's why I like saying whole food plant-based, because it means my diet is based on whole plant foods. Namely, I always like to say my list: vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices in infinite tasty combinations. People are now using plant-based to say based in plants, but, I'm giving some little wiggle room to adding in things. So I'm moving towards more saying a plants-only diet, perhaps. But my biggest concern about the linguistics here is the fact that for the first time in my 15 years as a dietitian, am I seeing people come to me that are vegans with the same health issues as the omnivorous people trying to change their health with the plant-based diet because of all of the hyper-processed foods. So my goal is to help people eat the most amount of the whole, intact plant foods as make that the foundation for their daily diet.
How can people get started? What obstacles might they encounter, and how can they overcome those?
There's so much social pressure, and there's so many messages everywhere, from the media to your friends and family to everywhere. There's just constant bombardment of messaging about a lot of misinformation. Try to shut down all of the messaging everywhere because these little seeds get planted. Like, where do you get your protein? That you may be like, oh, I know where I get my protein. I get plenty of protein, but it's in there. And then you'll see a news article that talks about we're not getting enough protein. I'm using protein because to me it's just so deep.
Oh yeah.
But it's still people are talking about it. And that seed will start growing a little bit and foster this idea in your mind. And then you have some self-doubt. Do your homework and get a lot of really good, solid information so you have a deep understanding. Second thing is to make this really fun. It's a really fun, delicious way to eat. And it should be about deliciousness. Now there's an abundance of options everywhere you go to find plant-based recipes. Find ones you love, and you only need 8 to 10 that you're going to rotate through. And you can expand your repertoire as you go forward. But
Socially, not everybody around you might be eating that way or understand. You mentioned, where do you get your protein? There's all those kinds of questions. So what are your recommendations in terms of maybe changing your mindset or thoughts you can cultivate?
The most important thing, number one, is to know your why. Why are you doing this? So first and foremost, define your why and really see it. See that real clearly. And then you just figure out the details. The rest is just paperwork.
Thank you. So on that note, what are some of the benefits of going whole food plant-based? That you can look forward to.
Goodness, there are infinite benefits. I still get new ones every day because, like I said, I've worked with thousands of people one-on-one, and I've seen things. I'm like, wow, I guess that could be because of your new diet, because things are just, changing. I mean, these amazing things. Let me just revert to what's substantiated very well in the literature right now. So we know that a whole food plant-based diet is the only diet that has ever reversed, and I see this all the time, type 2 diabetes and advanced stage cardiovascular disease. The best way to sustain and lose weight, like to have a healthy weight management, reduction of obesity, inflammatory markers, reduction of your risk for all of the most major chronic diseases, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, many cancers, so many things. And the research is just every day growing. What I was trained in graduate school was that you manage the disease. And it wasn't even an option to cure the disease or to go away from that process of being really inflamed and sick and suffering on medications. But I quite literally see this on a daily basis. My clients are removing their medications. They're getting fit and healthy and lean. They have energy like they've never had. I mean, the list goes on and on. I have yet to see someone not do better eating this way.
Well, Julieanna, thank you so much for sharing all of that. You're obviously a testament to all the health benefits, and I can see how much energy you have. So on that note, if people want to hear more about going plant-based or find out more about your work, where can they find you?
Well, thank you very much for all your kind words. And you can find me at plantbaseddietitian.com. I'm on social media and different variations of that. I'm on Instagram as Julieanna Hever, on Facebook as Plant-Based Dietitian, Twitter as Plant Dietitian, and YouTube with my name as well, Julieanna Hever. But everything is all linked on my website, plantbaseddietitian.com.
Back to you, David and Evelyn.
Great. Thank you, Diane and Julieanna. And it's just so, important to be hearing from a registered dietitian, right? That first of all, you can and should really have a plant-based diet to have optimum health. And it's just so great to hear from those voices. Now we'd like to take a moment to to thank our sponsors. As a reminder, our sponsors, you can find information about them in the virtual vegan marketplace. And there are our sponsors right there. Thank you. Huge thank you to all of them. And as Evelyn mentioned, our principal sponsors earlier, we couldn't have done this event without them. And all of them have links to their stores or their websites on our virtual vegan marketplace at bostonveg.org, as you can see scrolling at the bottom. And some amazing festival discounts that, as we've mentioned before, are going to be open from today for another 15 days. But check them out now, buy from their websites, and these are some amazing companies making really special discounts available to attendees of this festival.
And I'll just say that the festival special discounts will be active for 15 days until November 8th. Then they will expire, but the vegan marketplace will remain on our bostonveg.org website for the next almost a year until next year's festival replaces it. So you can do your vegan shopping on our website throughout the next year.
Yeah. So next up, we have Dr. Neal Barnard, and he joins us today to speak on the topic of his latest book, Your Body in Balance, The New Science of Food, Hormones, and Health. Dr. Barnard is president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which, by the way, is an amazing organization, PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and founder of the Barnard Medical Center. Dr. Barnard joins us from Washington, D.C.
Hi, and congratulations to everybody at the Boston Veg Food Fest. Fantastic. All of the things you have done for so many years, and this year is going to be the best ever. And I would like to just talk a little bit about the power of food. It is amazing to see what you can do when you put your mind to work. Now, I have to say, for me, the page turned in the world of nutrition back in 1990. That was the year that Dr. Dean Ornish wanted to see, can we not just prevent heart disease, but can we actually reverse it? And the whole question was, can I take that ugly looking artery that you see here at the bottom and make it look like that healthy artery at the top? But he didn't do it with drugs. What he did was an experimental program with vegetarian foods. Now, why veg foods for heart patients? Why would you do that? Okay, no cholesterol, no animal fat. Got it. Okay. Half-hour walk every day. Try to manage stress and no smoking. And what happened? It was amazing. Cholesterol levels fell. LDL, you know about that? Bad cholesterol fell. People lost weight. But the best thing was that arteries that had been narrowed by atherosclerotic heart disease started to reopen again. Not with drugs, not with any kind of roto-rooter surgery, but with diet and lifestyle. Let me show you what this looks like. This is an angiogram, an X-ray of an artery of the heart. This was in a physician who had serious heart disease, and he couldn't be stented, and he could not take statin drugs, so he went on a healthy vegan diet. That means a diet with no animal products at all. After 32 months, this was his artery. In other words, the body can heal. And it's not just heart disease. Our research team was funded by our National Institutes of Health to put a plant-based diet to the test for type 2 diabetes. This was a randomized clinical trial. We brought in people who had diabetes. Half of them did a vegan diet. The other half did a conventional diabetes diet. And to cut to the chase, what we track is something called hemoglobin A1C. That's a measure of your blood sugar. And you want it below about 7 if you've got diabetes. And the red line here was the conventional diet. They did well. Their A1C dropped. But the blue line are the people on the vegan diet, and their A1C improved 3 times more. That's right. There's nothing like eating a healthy plant-based diet to get your health back in gear. But there are some surprises. One day I was sitting at my desk here and the phone rang, and it was a young woman who said, "Dr. Barnard, I'm in pain." And as she described what she was going through, I could tell this was not fun for her. What was it? It was menstrual cramps. A lot of women have cramps, but for 1 in 10, it's maybe really the kind of cramps where you just don't go to work that day. You are so miserable. So I recommended to her some painkillers for now. But to prevent this from happening the next month and the next month and the next month, we used a low-fat vegan diet. It's 2 things. The animal products are gone. We're keeping foods very low in fat. And it was for her a cure. So we then did a research study, putting this to the test in a large group of people, testing the diet versus a supplement, which was really a placebo. After 2 cycles, these groups switched. The diet group tried the supplement. The supplement group tried the diet. And what we found is that a low-fat, completely plant-based diet works against not just heart disease, not just diabetes, but against mundane things like menstrual cramps. Pain intensity dropped. Even things like PMS started getting better. Isn't that surprising? So fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes, plus vitamin B12. You need that for healthy nerves, healthy blood. That's a healthy way to go. But now, what's happened in 2020? COVID-19 has arrived. Could a plant-based diet help us with COVID-19? Well, as soon as the disease emerged in China, it was pretty clear that the heavier you were, the more unwanted weight people had, the higher their risk of severe disease. And it wasn't just that. If you had diabetes, your risk of dying of this disease was much higher. But it wasn't just whether you had diabetes. If you were in poor control of your diabetes, 11% mortality. But if you had diabetes in good control, you could cut that mortality down to 1%. And the differences here were not huge. If you have diabetes, you know what these numbers mean. Poor control meant an A1C of 8.1%, good control, 7.3. You can make that difference with a diet change. You can do it with drugs too. Why not put foods to work now? So, healthy diet, fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes, plus your vitamin B12. How do I do that? You might be at this event because you were dragged by somebody else, but you're intrigued. Here's what you do now. For the next week, let me encourage you to check out the possibilities. What I mean is, think about plant-based foods, vegan foods that you would like. Take a piece of paper. Think about breakfasts and lunches and dinners and snacks and write them down. Try them. For the next 7 days, just try out vegan foods. You don't have to throw out anything else. You can still eat meat or whatever for this week, but try out the vegan foods. So, for example, if you have your pancakes with butter, leave the butter off. If you're having cornflakes with milk, have almond milk, oat milk, hemp milk, rice milk, soy milk. There's a lot of choices for you. Same thing for lunch. If you're always having the meat hamburger, try the veggie burger. Lots of choices for you. For dinner, let's go Italian, pasta marinara, pizza without cheese, but with plenty of other healthy toppings. I could go Mexican. I could go Latin American, beans and rice and veggie fajitas. Why not go Chinese, rice, tofu, vegetables? Japanese? Can I have the sushi that's not fish sushi? Cucumber sushi, asparagus rolls, sweet potato rolls, fantastic. And even fast food, not the pinnacle of culinary art, but it'll work for you too. Okay, so I've taken 7 days. I've written down my options, and now take 3 weeks and eat the food that you identified that you like. It's easy because it's only 3 weeks. It's your vegan test, but you're going to do it all vegan, all the time for 21 days. At the end of that time, you'll be healthier and your tastes will change. Thank you. I wish you a wonderful day. I hope you learn a lot. I hope you get a chance to taste wonderful new foods. Have at it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Barnard. And just a reminder to you all out there, we see you, hundreds of people watching on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure to share the video with your friends, because as we keep saying, we even still have some amazing speakers coming up. But next, we'd like to share something from Bayberry Cafe in Woburn that they shared with us for you.
Hello from Bayberry Cafe to everyone at the Boston Vegetarian Society. 25 years of Boston Vegan Food Festival. We'd love to see you here at Bayberry Cafe in Woburn.
We've had some wonderful events at Bayberry. Thank you, Ruby. I want to remind you that the event today is brought to you by the Boston Vegetarian Society. If you're inspired by the speakers that you've heard today and want to learn more, check out the carefully curated resources on our website at bostonveg.org. Just a wealth of valuable information there. And do get on our low volume email list at bostonveg.org/join so that you'll hear about the events that we have throughout the year to support your journey and build community. Next, we are bringing you a short message from Cheri Ezell, where she'll share her experience of transformation from being a goat and cow dairy farmer to being an animal rescuer and co-founder of Maple Farm Sanctuary in Mendon. Cheri?
Hi, welcome to Veg Food Fest 2020. I'm Cheri Ezell at Maple Farm Sanctuary. My husband and I founded Maple Farm Sanctuary more than 20 years ago. We used to milk dairy cows and dairy goats. But after stopping with the dairy cows and continuing with dairy goats and dealing with baby goats, we did come to a point in our journey where we just couldn't sell our babies anymore. We had to go vegan. We couldn't animal-based agriculture anymore. We grow our own hay, but that's it. We became a sanctuary. And now we do a few rescues during the year. Fewer and fewer right now because we have a lot of elder goats. But our journey included finally realizing that when our baby goats were being driven away in the trunk of a car crying, and it felt like 2 miles down the road, I could still hear them, and they were going to their death. We couldn't do that anymore. I always ask, I didn't always, but I sometimes ask the people that bought the goats, did they suffer? How do you kill them? And it was simply slicing their throat. It was not anything I wanted any creature to go through. So we went from milking dairy goats and dairy cows to rescuing dairy goats and dairy cows and a few extra, and trying to educate the public regarding a vegan lifestyle, plant-based agriculture, the environment, and we hope we have made a difference in this world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheri. And under normal non-pandemic times, you can take tours at Maple Farm Sanctuary led by their volunteers and meet the animals. There's nothing like that to remind you of why we're all doing this. One of the reasons we're all doing this. We're going to have a greeting now from Veggie Crust in Somerville and Brookline.
Hello, everyone. It's Veggie Crust in Brookline. At Boston, that food session coming soon. 25th anniversary. Please enjoy with us. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much, all the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Veggie Crust. Oh, and by the way, someone asked about this t-shirt. This is not a Boston Veg Food Fest t-shirt, but my cousin and her family made this for me. Does this shirt make me look vegan? I think I already look vegan. So next, we would like to welcome Abioseh Cole, who's also known as Sky Raven, the vegan poet. He's a hip hop artist, producer, and animal advocate. He'll be reading from his poem, I Am Not Food. And that poem has been made into a board book for children produced by vegan publishers. So following Abioseh Cole, we will also hear from Casey Taft, who's the co-founder of Vegan Publishers. And they've brought 30 books and cookbooks into the world for adults and children alike. So first, welcome to Abioseh Cole, and then Casey Taft.
Hi, everyone. I'm Abioseh Cole, author of I Am Not Food, illustrated by Kaylee Castle. Such an honor and a privilege to be able to share this book with you today. So let's jump right in. I am a pig, and I am not food. I am a person, just like you. I love my family. I love my friends. We love to play in our muddy pig pen. We wrestle and run. We jump around and roll. Our oinks are our words. It's how we say hello. I grunt softly when I'm happy. I roar when I'm mad. I love it when you rub my tummy, not when you hurt me or treat me bad. I get hungry like you do. I like acorns, fruits, and greens. I sleep in my mud bath and have happy piggy dreams. Please don't cook or eat me. That is very rude. I am a pig. I am not food. I am a chicken, and I am not food. I am a person, just like you. I like to jump when I play, and I can run really fast. I can count in my head and even do math. I like to dig in the dirt when the sun gets hot. I bathe in the dust. It cools me off a lot. I cackle when I lay my eggs, growl if you get too close, hiss to protect them, and sing them happy notes. I love to eat oatmeal and lots of juicy fruits. I sleep in a flat nest. You call it a roost. I am not your dinner. I have feelings too. I am a chicken. I am not food. I am a cow, and I am not food. I am a person, just like you. My family likes to dance in the spring. My friends play fetch for fun. We jump around the yard, and we really like to run. I make milk for my babies, not for cheese and ice cream. My calves love my milk. Don't take it away. That's mean. I moo when I speak to tell you if I'm happy or sad. My fur keeps me warm if the weather is bad. Sometimes I eat corn, but my favorite, it's hay. I also eat a lot of grass and sleep in it all day. I'd really like to be friends. Is that okay with you? I am a cow. I am not food. Thank you so much. Please support the book. Pass it on to any children that you want to influence with vegan culture, or any children who are in vegan livelihood that just need a little bit reinforcement in terms of our ethics and our principles. Thank you so much. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated. You can find me at Abioseh, the Vegan Poet, on Facebook, or Abioseh Cole on Twitter and IG. Thank you so much. Take care.
Hi, I'm Casey from Vegan Publishers.
And I am Lina from Vegan Beats.
We hope you enjoyed Abioseh's reading of I Am Not Food. We're really proud to have worked with him to produce that book. And in case you don't know about Vegan Publishers, we're a vegan-themed publisher. We try to publish books in all areas for children, for adults, covering kind of all the bases in terms of vegan education and vegan travel, vegan cooking, books for kids, families, etc. So we have a few new books that we're just coming up with now that you might be interested in, other children's books. Do you want to show them to the folks?
This is Eating Animals is Weird. This is the Great Animal Talent Show. And this is Junebug. It's about a little girl who likes bugs.
Yeah, we're really thrilled about these new books. We're trying to make books that, help parents to educate kids about veganism and ethics, but also we try to make kind of fun and silly books too, like Eating Animals is Weird, because some kids just want silly books and they don't want serious books all the time, right?
Yeah.
Then we have other classics like Santa's First Vegan Christmas. You remember this one?
Yeah.
What's this one about?
It's about a reindeer who tells Santa to go vegan, and check out Vegan Things because it has a really funny video with this book in it.
Nice plug. And we also have books for adults. We just published a book on an educator's guide for vegan inclusive teaching called Vegucated. Lena gave this book to all of her teachers. Remember that?
They all liked it the second day.
Yeah. And just covering all the bases. Again, books on Buddhism and veganism, vegan cooking, vegan fashion, vegan travel, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully you can check us out. And hopefully next year we'll be able to see you in person at the Boston Food Festival, Boston Vegetarian Food Festival. We're really sorry we couldn't be with you this year, but we look forward to seeing you there next year. So thank you. Bye.
Oh, thank you, Abioseh, Casey, and Lena. And you can shop Vegan Publishers books right on our virtual vegan marketplace page on our website, bostonveg.org. Stay with us. We have some great speakers ahead, Miyoko Schinner, Michael Greger, and others. And now we want to have a word from our organizing committee member, Melissa Gannon.
Hi, everyone. This is Melissa Gannon, Boston Veg Food Fest Volunteer Coordinator. I just want to take this time to thank everyone that helped us to publicize the event this year, and also to thank all the volunteers that help us to put on the festival every year. We would never be able to put on an event like this without the help of all of you. This year, of course, was different for all of us, and we really miss seeing everybody. But the good news is that we're all going to be able to catch every presentation this year. So please relax and enjoy the rest of the festival, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thank you again. Back to you, Dave and Evelyn.
Thank you, Melissa. And it's so true. I mean, we're powered by volunteers. And thank you to all of them throughout history. And speaking of, now we'd like to share a quick message from our friend Purple Rain. That's REIGN, that some of you have met at previous festivals, because she's been volunteering with us for 20 years. So let's hear from Purple Rain.
Hello, my name is Purple Rain. I have been volunteering at the Boston Vegetarian Food Festival for 20 years. I let my family know that I will not attend any event that they plan if it is the weekend of the Boston Vegetarian Food Festival. The Boston Vegetarian Food Festival is the highlight of my year. I wait for it all year long. I love the cooking demos, the free samples, the lectures, the vendors, and the fact that it is free, that can't be beat. So I hope to see all of you all at the Boston Vegetarian Food Festival this year. Thank you. Have a wonderful day on purpose.
Oh, we love you, Purple Rain. You make us smile just to know you. Next up, we have a cooking demo by Toni Okamoto. She is the founder of Plant-Based on a Budget, the popular website and meal plan that shows you how to save dough by eating veggies. Toni co-hosts the Plant Powered People podcast. She was featured in the documentary What the Health, and she has a new cookbook just coming out in a few days, and she'll be cooking something from that book and introducing that book to us. Her recipe is linked in her bio on our speaker page at bostonveg.org, and you can print it out from there. Toni joins us from California.
Hi, everyone. I am very excited and honored to be here today celebrating the 25th anniversary of Boston Veg Food Fest. That is so exciting. Congratulations. I admire all the hard work that you're doing, especially in these times when you have to celebrate this big, giant event virtually. So thank you again for doing all the good work that you do. And thank you to everybody who's watching this food presentation. I am Toni Okamoto, the founder of Plant-Based on a Budget, and also the author of the book Plant-Based on a Budget. And I'm actually coming out with a new book called The Friendly Vegan Cookbook. It is coming out in just a few days on October 27th. I am co-authoring it with my friend Michelle, and I'm going to be cooking from this today. I have been on a personal journey to really lower my waste, especially in the kitchen. I realized with all of the great information out and the Instagram accounts that I follow that I was really contributing to a lot of landfill waste with single-use plastic, and it made me really sad. I want to make sure that I'm doing the best I can to take care of the earth. And part of that is reducing my footprint in the kitchen. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make an easy pesto. It's really fast, quick, easy, delicious, and affordable. And I'll tell you why. We are going to use the special ingredient of walnuts. Usually this dish calls for pine nuts. Traditional pesto calls for pine nuts, and those are so expensive. So we're going to make sure that we save you some money by using walnuts. And I want to give you a few tips about shopping. We try to buy exclusively in bulk. It's been a little bit challenging with the pandemic. I totally understand that, but if you do some research, and if you have a car and can check out different grocery stores, I recommend finding one with bulk items. And I found one, and I do all of my bulk shopping in one big grocery trip once a month, and I stock everything. And the way they're able to do bulk items is that they only have the top, the upright containers that you pull the lever and bring your reusable bag. And so I bring my reusable bags. I have these, they're just mesh bags, and I got them online, and I think I got 10 for $9 of all different sizes. And then we also have these are our friendly vegan produce bags and bulk bags. And I then put all of my stuff in containers at home. So I'll take them out of the grocery store in these, and they have the weight on them so that you can save some money. You tell them their weight. And then I also bought all of these from thrift stores. I don't have fancy containers. I just went to thrift stores that says Seas Candy. I bought it in the thrift store and have been using it ever since. So that's mostly how I have really cut down on my use of plastic. That, and I'm also growing a lot of my own food now. I am not a very experienced gardener, but this year I have tried my hand at it. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and I've learned a lot. And I started with some containers like my basil. I grow basil now. I put it in a little container and I have that in my windowsill. You don't need a lot of space. And I have since gone on to grow in bigger containers, lots of different herbs. And now I have a garden box, which is really cool to be growing my own food and learning about how to save a lot of money in the process and to reuse my seeds and care for my garden. But on to the recipe. I am going to make a fast, easy recipe, perfect for weeknight dinners. All you do is dump your half cup of basil into a food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you could also use a high-powered blender, or if you don't have a high-powered blender, then start with your oil and your nuts first and ground those up really well, and then start everything else. So we've got half a cup of basil, 1 cup of walnuts. We have 2 garlic cloves, a teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, and half a cup of olive oil. Dump everything in the bowl of your food processor, and then you whiz it just until it's creamy. All right, that is about all I need. And with my pasta, same thing. I buy it in bulk, and that saves me from having to use plastic bags. Pour everything in a bowl. So I just put my pasta in here. And you can add any veggies you want to this dish. It's really easy to make. Vegetables, I just steam any vegetables I want, or I'll use some frozen peas or frozen broccoli for an extra fast meal. Dump your pesto in here and mix it up. I will show you in a smaller bowl what this is looking like. And here it is. I'm just going to toss one of these, and usually I would pull some tomatoes from my garden, some cherry tomatoes, and sprinkle them on for color. You can also put on some vegan Parmesan to make it extra tasty, or a little bit of nutritional yeast. And also, I forgot to mention one other thing that I really care about, which is I always use my stems. I throw the whole thing in there when I'm blending them up because I'm also trying to prevent food waste. So there you have it. Again, you can find this recipe from my new book, Friendly Vegan Cookbook. Thank you again so much for watching, and congratulations goes out to Boston Veg Food Fest for all of the amazing work that you do. Thank you. Bye.
For advice, and I made that pesto last night. I'm about to have it on this wonderful whole grain pasta, some tomatoes, some English peas. And she's right, I'm super busy, and I whipped that up really quickly and saved some money using walnuts instead of pine nuts. It's just a wonderful recipe. And as Evelyn mentioned, you can find it in Toni's bio on our website. And Toni also mentioned reducing food waste, and that's really close to my heart. As I mentioned, I work in sustainability. And some of you know I got started helping with the Boston Veg Food Fest to kind of reduce waste as much as we can. And so we, when we're in person, we have recycling. We hire people to take away our recycling and compost, save that stuff, and bootstrap compost we hire to handle that for us. We have volunteers stationed at the bins to help people know what to do. And so we really are truly trying to do our part to minimize and reduce waste as much as possible.
And this year, it's a totally zero waste event.
That's right, exactly. So there are some good parts about it being virtual. There's no waste here. So, and as a reminder, if you're joining through Facebook or wherever, share the video. You could click just the share button to share it, because we have some really cool speakers coming up. Now we're turning it over to organizing committee member Diane Daniel Sacco again to interview Miyoko Schinner, who's basically the queen of vegan cheese.
Hey there, welcome to Boston Veg Food Fest 2020 virtual edition. My name is Diane Daniel Sacco, and I'm speaking with Miyoko Schinner. I'm super excited about this. She, for anybody who doesn't know her, is a vegan chef, cookbook author, vegan entrepreneur, and animal advocate. You might know her as the vegan queen of cheese. So without further ado, Miyoko, welcome.
Hi, everyone in Boston, and congratulations on your 25th anniversary.
Miyoko, we just look at you and we see success. So tell us a little bit about some of the struggles you've faced and what we might not know about that.
When I was in my mid-20s, I went vegan. I was living in Japan. There was nothing to eat. I loved rich food, and I loved European-style cakes, especially. So I came up with ways to bake without eggs or dairy, and I started a little pound cake business in Tokyo. With the pound cakes, I actually delivered 70 pounds worth of pound cakes in a backpack on subways all over Tokyo. Eventually, I moved back to the United States, started a bakery that morphed into a restaurant, that morphed into a natural food company that made meat alternatives back in the 90s. I was definitely not in the right time. I mean, no one knew what vegan was. And trying to explain that to people just didn't get vegan. I just wanted to change the world. I wanted to change the way people looked at vegan food. I wanted to change the way people ate. I wanted them to enjoy these wonderful foods without harming animals and without harming the planet. I wanted to be able to do that. And yet I just felt like it was an uphill battle. Yeah, the many failures is that, I would always have a certain amount of what people would perceive as success. My products would be on store shelves, or I'd get these great newspaper reviews in the newspaper or whatever, get a certain amount of notoriety. But in terms of being able to pay my rent, it was always like a struggle. How am I going to make payroll? How am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay the vendors? How am I going to pay myself? And there were times when I just kept a business going just because I loved my employees. I had felt this responsibility to them to keep it going, even though I wasn't sleeping, I couldn't function. I was going to have a nervous breakdown, but I just didn't think I had it in me to start another business, but I did.
Good. Many people think that, business is here on the one hand and philanthropy is on the other. But a lot of people believe that doing business is actually a means to bringing about change in the world. And we're seeing that a lot with vegan brands right now. So can you speak to that a little bit?
For a long time, I really did struggle with the idea of being in business. I felt guilty. I felt like I should be completely altruistic, and business is about getting to be profitable at some point. And I felt like, how is that serving the greater good? But I think I've evolved my thinking to the point where I realized that we have to make economic choices in the world, every single consumer, every single person. So we have to change the economics of the food system if we believe that food is what's going to help save the planet and save animals. People don't want to just hear about the problems. They go at the end of the day, but what am I going to eat? So you have to provide them with what they can eat. And we are creatures of convention, and we do want those foods that are familiar, that we've grown accustomed to. But we can make immediate change right now by changing the economic model, by becoming a business that exists for the purpose of doing good. And I don't feel guilty anymore about making money, because what if at the end of the day I do make a lot of money? What am I going to do with it? Well, I'm not going to go retire in the Bahamas. I'm going to use that money to put it into other vegan enterprises or other companies that are trying to do the same thing to make a change in the economic model. I'll get a bigger animal sanctuary. I'll employ more people. Yeah, I really felt like Beyond and Impossible had done a great job of solving one of the most popular foods in American culture, which is burgers. So they really solved the burger problem. And that is one way to solve the issue of meat consumption for the general public. The other most popular food, of course, is pizza. But we're about to relaunch this project. We have a lot of pizzerias that are interested, and we have a really exciting marketing campaign for this that we're going to be launching in first quarter 2021.
The world can seem like a really tough place right now, and a lot of people are struggling. Can you talk about why each of our choices matter so much for animals and for the planet?
Taking that stance, whether it's one meal a day or one meal a week, that's fewer animals being killed. That's fewer greenhouse gas emissions being generated. It does add up. So you're seeing the beginning of an exponential rise in veganism and people making the connection to their climate change and what's on their plate. Movies like The Game Changers are having a huge impact on what people are eating. And the more foods like ours become available, Impossible, Beyond, our products, Califia, whatever, the more these products become available in supermarkets around the country, just think back 3 years ago. Each person joining the ranks is making that impact. So your choices do count.
Miyoko, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us and share your wisdom and your journey. David, Evelyn, back to you.
Oops. Still enjoying that pesto. That was wonderful. And I love Miyoko's products. You can find it in many supermarkets. And I'm excited about this vegan pizza project she's going to be working on. That's awesome. So, it really does feel like Boston Veg Food Fest Day here. And just a reminder, if you hadn't tuned in at the beginning of the day, our mayor here in Boston actually declared it Boston Veg Food Fest Day. Here's the mayoral proclamation. So if you also are feeling like it's Boston Veg Food Fest Day, you are right. Next, we're excited to welcome Massachusetts State Representative Jack Patrick Lewis. He's a co-founder of the Animal Welfare Caucus at the Massachusetts State House, and he's been the lead sponsor on a number of animal protection bills. And he's going to highlight some of those for us in his talk. He has degrees in political science and international relations, and as a community leader and legislator, he has a passion for fighting for a more just world for people and for animals. Representative Lewis is one of two vegan legislators, can't get that word right, in the Massachusetts State House, and his district covers Framingham and Ashland. So over to you, Representative Lewis.
Hello, my name is Jack Patrick Lewis, and I serve as a state representative for Ashland and Framingham. It is a great honor to be joining you for this virtual celebration of the Boston Veg Food Fest and its 25-year anniversary. Words can't describe how humbled I am to share this virtual stage with such phenomenal leaders as Peter Singer and Dr. Neal Barnard, people whose writings have forever changed my view of the world. While we may not be gathered in person this year, I know that I've seen many of you, more likely than not, bumped into many of you at the Food Fest as my family and yours waited in line patiently for those delicious samples and to speak with important advocacy organizations. Every year, we were guaranteed to leave the Veg Food Fest with a belly full of delicious plant-based treats and a heart full of hope and optimism for our public health, for local and global sustainability, and for the future of animal welfare. Thank you to all of you for the vital role you play in our collective efforts. In the Massachusetts legislature, it is a great honor to work closely with statewide advocates and organizations, along with numerous committed colleagues, to advocate for these shared values. And if you haven't got involved in the legislative advocacy side of our efforts yet, I urge you to rectify that today. Earlier this year, Representative Natalie Higgins and I founded the Animal Welfare Caucus, a legislative caucus committed to furthering legislation around animal protection. This work is done in partnership with great organizations, including Mass Voters for Animals, Best Friends, Rise for Animals, formerly Neves, the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the Humane Society of the United States, Animal Rescue League of Massachusetts, and ALDF, just to name a few. These organizations play such an important role in the legislative process, not least of which is connecting you to your local legislators. We as state reps and senators work for you, but we need to hear from you. I urge you to follow these organizations on social media today and to sign up for their legislative updates through their websites. Because as animal protection bills are filed, you have a vital role in emailing and calling your state representatives and senators asking that they co-sponsor and support proposed pro-animal legislation. There are several important animal protection bills that we plan to file in the new legislative session in January that I hope I can count on your support for. First, I will be refiling a bill to ban the use of animals in cosmetic testing in our Commonwealth. With the great availability of non-animal alternatives and the unspeakable number of animals harmed in unnecessary testing, it is vital that we get this legislation passed. I'll also be filing new legislation, modeled after a recently passed bill in California that will ban the sale of fur in our Commonwealth. I'm working closely with statewide advocates to lay the foundation for this bill, but I'm going to need your sustained support when I file it in January. Several of my colleagues have also filed other great bills to protect animals in our Commonwealth, including banning the use of wild animals in circuses, the sale of ivory, and the sale of puppies from puppies mills. Just to name a few bills that need your support today to get across the legislative finish line. Until we're all gathered together again, thank you so much for everything you're doing, and keep up your advocacy. Take care.
Thank you, Representative Lewis. And as he said, you know, it's so important, especially with an election coming up, to be reminded that it's important to vote. Yes, extremely important, but also extremely important to stay politically active because legislators need to hear from you, as he said. Now we'd like to share something from Grasshopper Vegan Restaurant in Alston that they sent for you all to see.
Hello, I'm from Grasshopper Vegan Restaurant in Alston, Massachusetts, and congratulations, like Boston Vegetarian Society have a festival for 25 years.
Thank you, Hoy from Grasshopper in Alston. We have our monthly live speaker events at Grasshopper, and following that, he puts out an amazing vegan buffet for us. So when we're back into normal times, we look forward to being back there. Coming up next, we have Stephanie Harris. She is the Senior Legislative Affairs Manager for the Animal Legal Defense Fund. She works to develop and advance their legislative campaigns. She has a decade of experience in animal protection, and she recently led the research and publication of an in-depth white paper on the root causes of zoonotic diseases and the industrialized animal farming and wildlife trafficking industries that put animals and humans in the most danger of pandemics. She's going to speak to us today on COVID-19 in animals. How is our treatment of animals linked to future global pandemics? And Stephanie joins us from Massachusetts.
Hi there. Thank you for the opportunity to present on how protecting animals can help prevent future pandemics and to participate in Boston Veg Fest virtually from my home just across the river from the usual site of the event. Few people are aware of the zoonotic or animal-to-human origin of the current pandemic. However, 75% of new infectious diseases in the past decade have been zoonotic, and the rate of outbreaks of zoonotic diseases, like COVID-19, is increasing. Since they need only a human-animal interaction to arise, it's not a question of if, but when there will be another. Policymakers are rightly focused on the current pandemic and the public health crises and systemic inequities it has exacerbated. However, now is also the time to examine the root causes of zoonotic disease and to reimagine the systems and conditions that are creating our ongoing pandemic risk, namely our troubled interactions with animals. If a human-animal interaction is all that's needed to spark the next outbreak, what are our greatest risk factors? Humanity's exploitation of animals and the natural environment we share with them, our food system, the wildlife trade, habitat loss, and human encroachment, climate change, and recent regulatory obstruction. Focusing on our food system, animals in live markets or on factory farms are typically relentlessly stressed, confined, and crowded, often in unsanitary conditions. Animals are forced to share space, air, bodily fluids, and pathogens. The stress animals endure also makes them more vulnerable to disease and more likely to shed pathogens. Live markets offer animals for sale and on-site slaughter, bringing humans, vendors, and patrons into dangerously close contact with live animals and potentially pathogens. These markets may sell domesticated and/or wild animals, sometimes endangered or threatened species, and animals who may never come into contact with one another in the wild, which can bring animal viruses that would normally have little or no contact with alternative hosts into close contact with potential recipient hosts. In the case of COVID-19, it was the crowded live market conditions that likely facilitated human-to-human transmission rather than the original animal-to-human spillover event. However, live markets abroad and in the U.S. have been the source of zoonotic disease outbreaks, including bird flu, swine flu, SARS, and more. Similarly, factory farms have been tied to zoonotic disease outbreaks. The health of farmed animals in our food system has been described as the weakest link in our global health by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. On factory farms, because often thousands of genetically similar animals are stressed and vulnerable to disease, producers often continually feed farmed animals antibiotics. The World Health Organization has warned that we may be heading for a post-antibiotic era in which common infections and minor injuries can once again kill. Factory farming stands apart from other methods of food production in its sheer scale, with 10 billion land animals raised in the U.S. each year and countless aquatic animals, and in its significant contribution to habitat loss and climate change. The factory farm-reliant food system also has long supply chains, risking exposure to people throughout, including workers in and communities near factory farms and even consumers. And because manure from factory farms is used on some crop fields, even plant-based foods may be contaminated by the industry. To protect against our heightened risk, policymakers must address these issues: animal exploitation, access to safe and plant-focused food, equitable resource allocation, and climate change. Any industry or practice that involves human interaction with many confined animals, like on factory farms and in live markets, must be addressed with reform, ranging from novel and effective regulation to complete prescription and abandonment. We cannot simply monitor our high-risk food system. We must shift food production from high-risk to lower or low-risk production. This means transitioning away from a factory farm-reliant food system to a low-risk, plant-centered agriculture using agroecological approaches and supporting farmers, workers, and communities through this transition. For more, visit aldf.org/whitepaper and aldf.org/webinars. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. That was really important information for us all to know, especially right now. So I did want to quick remind everybody that this event, as we've been saying, is brought to you by the Boston Vegetarian Society, and we hold events throughout the year, as Evelyn mentioned earlier. And to find out about those, you could go to bostonveg.org/join to join our email list, and we'll share resources, events, all sorts of things through that low-volume email list. And I'm sad because now we're introducing our last speaker. This day just went so fast, even though it's almost 1 o'clock. Our last speaker of the day is someone who holds the record for the most time speaking at Boston Veg Food Fest. Dr. Michael Greger is a physician, New York Times bestselling author, and internationally recognized speaker on a number of important public health issues. His nonprofit nutritionfacts.org is the first science-based non-commercial website to provide free daily videos and articles on the latest discoveries in nutrition. He's written 6 books, 3 of which were instant New York Times bestsellers, and he has a new book called How to Survive a Pandemic. And by the way, when I was in Lausanne in Switzerland last year, I went to a restaurant called Plant Smart, and I walked in and there was Michael Greger's book. And I mentioned that we host Michael Greger every year at our Veg Food Festival. And the next thing I knew, I was getting free dinner. And I've stayed in touch with Ahmad there at Plant Smart. And now we've shared a note from him with Michael Greger. So, I mean, these are truly global speakers that we've had through the day, and you could see that, which is amazing. So without further ado, welcome to Michael. But on the other end of the video, me and Evelyn will be back to close the event and share some more reminders with you all.
Welcome to the Boston Vegetarian Food Festival, the 25th annual. I can't believe I can't be there in person. Of course, I guess no one's there in person, but hopefully next year we will all be reunited. Unfortunately, the way we're doing it here, I can only do all slides or just all me. And so I could give my pandemic presentation, which is just me as a talking head, or I could do my weight loss presentation, which is a bunch of cool slides. And I figure all the other speakers probably going to be doing the talking head thing. So I was like, all right, let's do some slides. Surely, if there was some safe, simple, side effect free solution to the obesity epidemic, we would know about it by now, right? I'm not so sure. It may take an average of 17 years before research evidence makes it into day-to-day clinical practice. To take one example that was particularly poignant for my family, heart disease. Dr. Dean Ornish and colleagues just demonstrated decades ago that our leading cause of death could be reversed with diet and lifestyle changes alone, yet hardly anything changed. Even now, hundreds of thousands of Americans continue to needlessly die each year from what we learned decades ago was a reversible condition. I had seen it with my own eyes. My grandmother was cured of her end-stage heart disease by one of Dean's predecessors, Nathan Pritikin, using similar methods. She was given her a medical death sentence at age 65 after having one too many open-heart surgeries, but thanks to a healthy diet, she's able to live another 31 years on this earth till age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. So, if effectively the cure to our number one killer could get lost down some rabbit hole and ignored, what else might there be buried in the medical literature that could help my patients, but just doesn't have a corporate budget driving its promotion? Well, I made it my life's mission to find out. That's why I became a doctor in the first place, and why I started my nonprofit site, nutritionfacts.org. Everything on the website is free. There are no ads, no corporate sponsorship. Strictly non-commercial, not selling anything, just put up as a public service. A labor of love as a tribute to my grandmother. New videos and articles almost every day on the latest on evidence-based nutrition. What a concept. Okay, so what does the evidence show is the best way to lose weight? If you want testimonials and before and after pictures, you have come to the wrong place. I'm not interested in anecdotes. I'm interested in evidence. When it comes to making decisions, is life and death important as the health and well-being of yourself and your family? There's really only one question. What does the best available balance of evidence say right now? With enough portion control, anyone can lose weight. I mean, lock someone in a closet, you can force them to lose as much body fat as you want. Chaining someone to a treadmill could have a similar effect. But what's the most effective weight loss regimen that doesn't involve calorie restriction or exercise or a felony? Well, I have scoured through the medical literature, all the randomized controlled trials, and the single most successful strategy to date is a diet of whole plant foods. The single most effective weight loss intervention like that ever published in the peer-reviewed scientific literature, a whole food plant-based diet works better than anything else studied to date. I mean, look, we've known for more than 40 years that those eating predominantly plant-based diets weigh, on average, about 30 pounds less than the general population. But you don't know if it's the diet itself until you put it to the test. In 2017, a group of New Zealand researchers published the broad study, 12-week randomized controlled trial in the poorest region of the country with the highest rates of obesity. Overweight individuals were randomized to receive either standard medical care or semi-weekly classes offering advice and encouragement to eat a low-fat diet centered around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, which are beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils. And that's all it was, just empowerment with knowledge. No meals were provided. The intervention group was merely informed about the benefits of plant-based eating and encouraged to incorporate into their own lives. No significant change in the control group, but the plant-based intervention group, even without any restrictions on portions and being able to freely eat all the healthy foods they wanted, lost an average of 19 pounds by the end of the 3-month study. 19 pounds, respectable weight loss. Yeah, but what happened next? I mean, at the end of those 12 weeks, class was dismissed and no more instruction was given. The researchers were curious, though, to see, how much weight the subjects had gained back after being released from the study. So everyone was invited back to the 6-month mark to get reweighed. The plant-based group had left the 3-month study 19 pounds lighter, but after 6 months, they're only down about 27 pounds. They got even better. The plant-based group had been feeling so good, both physically and mentally, had been able to come off so many of their medications that they were sticking with the diet on their own, and the weight had continued to come off. What about a year later? I mean, even in studies that last a whole year, where people are coached to stay on a particular diet the entire time, by the end of the year, any initial weight loss in the first few months tends to creep on back. The broad study only lasted 3 months, yet after it was all over, those who had been randomized to the plant-based group not only lost dozens of pounds, they kept it off. They not only achieved greater weight loss at 6 and 12 months than any other comparable trial. That was months after the study had already ended. A whole food plant-based diet achieved the greatest weight loss ever recorded compared to any other such intervention published in the medical literature. You can read the record-breaking study in full for free at nature.com/article/NUTD2173, or you can just point your phone camera at the screen and pick off the QR code. Any diet that results in reduced calorie intake can result in weight loss. I mean, dropping pounds isn't so much the issue. The problem is keeping them off. And a key difference between plant-based nutrition and more traditional approaches to weight loss is that people are encouraged to eat ad libitum, which means you can eat as much as you want. No calorie counting, no portion control, just eating. The strategy is to improve the quality of food rather than restricting the quantity of food. If you put people on a diet packed with fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, and allow them to eat as much as they want, they end up eating about 50% fewer calories than they might have otherwise. Just as full on half the calories. Wait, how can you keep people satisfied cutting more than 1,000 calories out of their daily diets? By eating more high bulk, low calorie density foods, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and beans, and fewer calorie dense foods like meats, cheeses, sugars, and fats. But it may not just be the calories in side of the equation. Those eating more plant-based appear to effectively be burning more calories in their sleep. The resting metabolic rate of those eating more plant-based may be 10% higher or more, a boost of metabolism that can translate into burning up hundreds of extra calories a day more without doing a thing. Eating more plant-based, you burn more calories just being alive, just existing. So no wonder why those who eat more plant-based tend to be slimmer. Start packing your diet with real food that grows out of the ground, and the pounds should come off naturally, taking you down towards your ideal weight. If there's one piece of advice that best sums up my weight loss recommendations, it would be wall off your calories. See, animal cells are encased only in easily digestible membranes, which allows the enzymes in our gut to effortlessly liberate the calories within a steak, for example. Plant cells, on the other hand, have cell walls that are made out of fiber, which acts as an indigestible physical barrier, so many of the calories remain trapped. Processed plant foods, on the other hand, like fruit juice, sugar, refined grains, even whole grains, if they've been powdered into flour, have had their cellular structure destroyed, their cell walls cracked open, and their calories are free for the taking. But when you eat structurally intact plant foods, chew all you want, you're still going to end up with calories completely surrounded by fiber, which then blunts the glycemic impact, delivers sustenance to your friendly flora, activates what's called the ileal brake, which dials down your appetite, and dumps trapped calories out the other end. So, bottom line, try to make sure as many of your calories as possible, your protein, your carbs, your fat, are encased in cell walls. In other words, from whole intact plant foods. That's what nature intended to happen millions of years before we learned how to sharpen spears, mill grains, or boil sugarcane. Our entire physiology is presumed to have evolved in the context of eating what the rest of our great ape cousins eat: plants. The Paleolithic period, when we started using tools, only goes back about 2 million years. We and other great apes have been evolving since back in the Miocene era, more like 20 million years ago. So for the first 90% of our hominoid existence, our bodies evolved on mostly plants. It's no wonder then that our bodies may thrive best on the diet we were designed to eat. So maybe we should go back to our roots. What about ketogenic diets? Body fat loss actually slows down when you switch to a ketogenic diet because your body starts cannibalizing its own protein. Just looking at the bathroom scale, though, the keto diet seems like a smashing success, losing less than a pound a week on the regular diet to, boom, 3.5 pounds within 7 days after switching to keto. But what was happening inside their bodies told a totally different story. On the ketogenic diet, the rate of body fat loss was slowed by more than half. So most of what they were losing was water, but they were also losing protein, also losing lean mass. That may help explain why the leg muscles of CrossFit trainees placed on a ketogenic diet can shrink as much as 8% within 2 months. Of course, even if keto diets work, the goal of weight loss is not to fit into a skinnier casket. People whose diets even tend to trend that way appear to live significantly shorter lives. On the other hand, even just drifting in the direction of eating more healthy plant foods is associated with living longer. Those going the other way, though, those who start out more plant-based but then add meat to their diet at least once a week, not only appear to double or triple their odds of diabetes, stroke, heart disease, and weight gain, but may also suffer an associated 3.6-year drop in life expectancy. That's going from no meat to just once a week meat or more. Low-carb diets have been shown to impair artery function and worsen heart disease, whereas whole food plant-based diets have been shown to actually reverse heart disease. That's what Ornish and Pritikin used. So it appears to be the most effective weight loss diet, just so happens to be the only diet ever proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients. I mean, if my grandma didn't have to die like that, maybe no one's grandma has to die like that. If that's all a plant-based diet could do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that be like the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be so effective in preventing, arresting, treating, reversing other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. Only one diet has ever been shown to do all that, a diet centered around whole plant foods. We don't have to mortgage our health to lose weight. The single healthiest diet also appears to be the most effective diet for weight loss. After all, permanent weight loss requires permanent dietary change. Healthier habits just have to become a way of life. And if it's going to be lifelong, you want them to lead to a long life. And thankfully, the single best diet proven for weight loss may just so happen to be the safest, cheapest way to eat for the longest, healthiest life. Thank you so much, everyone. Looking very much forward to coming back to Boston soon.
Oh, Dr. Michael Greger, we love you.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, During the course of our program today, you've gotten to meet most of our organizing committee members, David and I, Melissa Gannon and Beth Barrett and Diane Daniel Sacco. You haven't met Beverly Rich. She's the only one who wasn't able to be on screen with us today, but Beverly works tirelessly behind the scenes. She's been my colleague and team member for going on 30 years now on the BVS board, and one of the hardest working people I know, and one with truly a heart of gold. I don't know anybody like Beverly Rich, so thank you, Beverly. Getting a little teary here. But our team has had so much fun planning this event this year. There's more involved in planning a virtual event, we found, than one might have imagined in the marketplace. So we've just been enjoying ourselves so much. We've had this little live chat going on with each other throughout the meeting today, and we even have a meeting planned following the session today because we just can't get enough of each other, right, David?
That's right, exactly. And to Evelyn's point, I mean, so there were 6 of us behind the scenes meeting almost weekly, helping to organize and bring this to you all. And then we also have relied on others' help. All the speakers who spoke, thank you for your time. The restaurants, the principal sponsors, and exhibitors that are at the virtual vegan marketplace on our website, bostonveg.org. We have a producer, Jonathan Hawkins, who's been amazing. We had an amazing web designer, which actually just add a little bit more about that, Evelyn.
Well, Willa Jarnigan, I talked to her last night and I said, Willa, you have been the backbone of this event. She has contributed just beyond words what Willa has done, building our website in the first place and all of the work. And this is on top of her regular, very demanding full-time job, building our website and doing all of the massive amount of work with the marketplace, and just putting not just work, but heart and soul into making this the best possible experience for everybody. And we thank Willa beyond words.
And then a huge thank you to all of you as well. Some of you volunteered and helped us promote the festival. And then all of you who have been commenting and sharing, and you know, these videos will live on, you know, unlike past festivals, we'll actually have these videos to share. So we do look to you for continued help to spread the word about all these important messages that you heard today. So thank you all as well.
That's right. That's the good thing, is that all of this program today is being recorded and will be available to rewatch starting pretty much immediately. If you missed anything or want to tell your friends about it, it'll be on our website and on our just created YouTube channel and our Facebook page as well.
So Evelyn, what's your top one thing someone should go do right now after this live stream ends?
If you're not already on it, sign up for our low volume BVS email list so that we can stay in touch with you for years and decades to come.
And then I'm going to cheat. I have 2 things. One is go to the virtual vegan marketplace sometime between now and 15 days from now to shop with some amazing discounts from all the exhibitors. And then my second thing is try out, if you aren't already vegan, try out a plant-based meal for lunch or dinner today. See how you like it. Find some amazing recipes and cookbooks and stuff on our website, bostonveg.org.
And I want to add, to support our vegan and vegetarian restaurants now more than ever, they work so hard and provide such a service to the community. They give us wonderful events for holidays and decades. They've been friends of ours. On our website, bostonveg.org, we have a very comprehensive restaurant page where all of the restaurants included are those who have made a commitment to not serve any meat or flesh foods, and many of them are vegan as well. Also want to bring you back to the speakers page on our site to go back and explore that at your leisure. Click on all the links to the different speakers, learn more about their work. They're just doing amazing things to make this a better world.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us for the 25th anniversary of the Boston Veg Food Fest. And we'll see you throughout the year and again next year.